Peace and love, y'all. It's your brother A.D.V.I.S.S back with another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays, Season 4, the final season, Episode 9. Now, as we usually do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put our show logo, as well as I'm going to put down in the comments our topics for tonight. But as y'all are coming in, y'all let me know how y'all doing, how y'all feeling, and what's the word? So as y'all are doing that, I'm going to go over here, place a few things up. But shout out to those who are watching this now, as well as going to be watching this later, whether on Instagram or YouTube. If you're there on YouTube, go ahead, subscribe to your boy A.D.V.I.S.S Speaks. There's going to be more videos there, just not these type of content or this type of video, but there'll be others there. So go ahead, support your boy A.D.V.I.S.S Speaks as well. And as we're doing all the things you guys are sharing down in the comments, for today's episode, we're going to be talking about a few things. Of course, usually we're going to get into our current events like we usually do. After current events, we're going to talk about the single life. Interesting, right? And then lastly, we're going to talk about, can a society survive with a high singles population? You let me know. I don't know. We're going to see. But we with it. Shouts out to Chicken and Beef. What's going on, my G? Peace and one love. You good, my G? A.D.I.G. Much love, brother. I appreciate it. It's all good. Again, we live and we learn. We live and we learn. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But appreciate you being up in here. Again, you let me know. All y'all, let me know how y'all doing, how y'all feeling. What's the word? Put it down in the comments. We all good. We gonna keep it moving regardless. Even if we got to find another avenue, we're going to keep it moving. Because there's no question I'll rock it every time. All right, y'all. We're going to go ahead, get this on the road. I came in a little bit still trying to make sure everything was right and set up. So let's go ahead. We're going to do the show song, get into these current events, and be on our way. So, let's go. Again, it's a final season. So, eventually, you ain't got to worry about me singing this part anymore, because it'll be a song. But, for now, it's how it goes. What's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? Tell them like, what's the word? What's the word? What you heard? We gotta know, yeah, what's the word? Peace and love, y'all. It's your brother A.D.V.I.S.S back with another episode for What's the Word Wednesday, Season 4, Episode 9. I'm appreciative of y'all's support, continuing to come in each Wednesday or every other Wednesday, whenever it's posted. Y'all come in and show the love and support. So thank y'all for doing what y'all do. NMP, peace and love to you, man. What's the word? Shout out. Let me know how y'all doing, how y'all feeling in the comments. And what's the word? A phrase? How you feeling? Whatever it may be. So, with all of that being going done and said, again, for tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about current events. So this is going to be the news portion. If you don't want to stick around for the news portion, it takes about 15-20 minutes. You can pop right back in. And after the news portion, we're going to talk about the single life. Talk about being single. And this is relationship-wise. And then lastly, we're going to talk about, can a society survive with a high singles population? We gonna talk about it. We gonna build on it, because that's what What's the Word is all about. You tell me, what's the word? What's good? Right. With that being said, let's jump into the first topic, which is current events. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have at least 6. 3 of them I will look through. The other 3, I'll just mention the titles, and you can go and look through and get some research going on there. But I'm glad, no more problems today. That's what I'm talking about, man. All about successes and wins. But understanding that problems can arise, but you are the maker of your reality for that to happen. and to also not want to happen. It's all in the choices that you make. But talk about a few topics that popped, of course, into my attention. There's many more. So if y'all have any, at least news topics, things you want to share, whether it's happening in the world or a place near you, please put them down in the comments. But the first one I got for you that I just want to bring attention to, again, we got a lot of weather warnings still happening. One of them I just want to just say and then send, of course, safety and awareness to the folks there. But first one comes from the Associated Press. Headline reads, tornado touches down near Chicago's O'Hare Airport amid severe weather warnings. So I'm gonna just read the 2 paragraphs and be out there. But my folks that's out there in Chicago, please be cautious, be careful. But it says the National Weather Service said a tornado touched down near Chicago's O'Hare International Airport on Wednesday, today, following warnings of severe weather for the city. There were no immediate reports of injuries. So then they said a confirmed tornado was on the ground around 7 p.m., according to the National Weather Service in Chicago. So again, my folks, please be careful out there. And it says it's moving east. So be very, 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 very mindful and careful about what's happening and what's going on. But if you want to read more, you want to figure out more what's happening with this, go ahead and check out the Associated Press. And the headline reads, tornado touches down near Chicago's O'Hare Airport amid severe weather warnings. All right. Another article that I found interesting. Again, these are ones that's just popping up that seem interesting to me. So if you still have your own that you want to share, put them down in the comments. We'll talk about it. But the next one I got comes from News, but it's spelled Knewz. And the headline reads, I was a CIA spy. These are the 4 vital things I carried with me at all times in case of trouble. So, coming from a CIA spy, let's see what these things are. And we're going to do 3 paragraphs. And this time, what the 4 things are. And we're out. So, Andrew Bustamante, or if I'm saying it wrong, again, I'll be butchering names. A former spy with the CIA has recently revealed the 4 items he always carried on him during his time as a covert operative. Bustamante, who spent 15 years serving in this country and working alongside his CIA operative wife, has debunked the Hollywood myth of spies having a consistent cache of secret weapons. Or I should say stash of weapons. Instead, he explains spies must carry items that match their cover identity. First item that he has on there is shoes with laces. Second one, always carried around $100. Third one, looks like he carried a laminated list of the most important numbers to him. And as well, he also carried a key card that would open almost any hotel door. So those were the few things. So you got your shoes with shoelaces. You got your $100. You got a credit card. International credit card, I should say. And then also a card that can open any hotel door. I just found it interesting because we have a lot of movies as well as just people talking about being CIA, being spies, and what does that mean. So if you want to read more into it, see some more on it. This comes from News, Knewz, and the headline reads, I was a CIA spy. These are the 4 vital things I carried with me at all times in case of trouble. Boom. Oh yeah, it's all me. All right, the next one I saw that's very interesting too is this comes from Best Life, and the headline reads, Walmart worker issues warning to shoppers about self-checkout. We'll see specifically what she's talking about. Employees know items aren't getting, so let's see. Self-checkout is one more convenient spot or the aspects of shopping, especially if you're picking one or two things and you want to be in and out of the store. But there are certain security measures in place at these retailers. If you regularly use self-checkout at Walmart, an employee has a warning for you. First one, employees know when items aren't scanned. Second, there's something going on with the devices where last year a former employee uses, whoever the handle is there, said wanted to warn shoppers that these devices make it easier for Walmart to catch thieves. So it's just letting y'all know that y'all gonna get caught if y'all doing what y'all not supposed to be doing with this. Yeah, as well as there's cameras right in the scanners. So a lot of this having to do with just anti-theft stuff. So now you know. I just thought it was interesting at first. But this is not in just any other place, but that's in all other different self-checkout spots in any of the stores. So just let y'all know, there it is. But all right, the next one, which I found also interesting, coming off of still what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. But this article comes from Radar Online, and the headline reads, World War III is coming. Bold letters. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, not even gonna try it. It's almost like medieval dev. Warns completely mad West that all-out global battle is approaching. So I'm gonna read 3 paragraphs of this, and then we're out. If you want to read more, you check up the title itself. So, article reads, former Russian President Dmitry I'm going to say M, warned the completely mad West that World War III was fast approaching. Vladimir Putin's ally issued the warning as President Joe Biden met with fellow G7 leaders at the NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania. While Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wasn't extended the expedited path to NATO. I am butchering today. Membership, he desperately pleaded for G7 leaders to support or vowed to support in the form of long-term security package. M, who served as the deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia, claimed Western countries were at dead end and that an expanded war effort was obvious. So, I'm not going to read more, but there's more and more warnings continuing to come out in this area. So, I don't know, but making sure you're keeping up on this, you can at least anticipate what is really happening when it comes to country relations, international relations, internal affairs, however you want to say that. But again, if you want to read more about this, article came from Radar Online, and the headline reads, World War III is coming. Former Russian President Dmitry I'm not going to say his whole name, warns completely mad West that all-out global battle is approaching. It's approaching, y'all. And speaking of still on this planet in this world and not knowing what could be happening when or what's going on next, one of the other articles I have for y'all comes from Earth, and the headline reads, New planet discovered with an ocean not far from Earth. It's very interesting. What's going on, Kundan? What's the word? I'm going to pop you in here. In a second. I'm going to finish this article, and I'm going to let you speak your piece on another one. So the article reads, Three paragraphs and we're out. The scientific community has discovered a new planet. It was located 245 light years away from Earth and has been named TOI 3733b. All these different code names. Its size is slightly less than twice the radius of Earth. It has a unique feature: its atmosphere. For now, experts have presented two possibilities. First is that it may have lost its atmosphere layer. The second is that it could be a highly radiated oceanic world. Very interesting. It's stated in a study published by Specialized Astronomer Journal, Astronomy and Astrophysics. In the study, it detailed that this new planet has a density of 3.9 grams per cubic centimeters. Unfortunately, I'm not too sure what that means. To give an idea, it is slightly lower than Earth's density, which is 5.51 grams per cubic centimeter, but higher than that of our neighbor Mars, because people have been talking about wanting to go to Mars and things of that sort happening. Another point mentioned in the article, is that the planet orbits a star slightly smaller than the sun and completes its orbit in a total of 4.9 days. This is approximate to the star that serves as an explanation for the first of the two scenarios that scientists have proposed regarding its atmosphere, of how it may not have one. But again, they are continuing to search out there in space and finding other bodies and other planets to explore, which they should be working on the first one, but it's all good. If you want to learn more about this, article comes from Earth, just Earth, and the headline reads, "New planet discovered with an ocean not far from Earth." Very interesting. But let's see, you in here blowing it up right now. Yeah, so much has happened in the last 2 weeks since you made an episode, such as landmark Supreme Court such in U.S., affirmative action ended, and Biden's student loan forgiveness program blocked. I knew about the program being blocked. Yes, said an amended, somewhat defunct version. I'm gonna let you speak on that one right now. Kundan. But yeah, other than that, y'all, all the other news that I may have for y'all, again, if y'all want to check out just headlines of news in different articles, go to npr.org and you can scan through and see the latest of news. But main thing is, please stay aware of what's happening, what's going on around the world, because it can have an effect on you. And even if you don't think it does have an effect on you, in some way, shape, or form, it does. But shouts out to my brother, Bad Times, Good Times. What's going on, my G? What's the word? All this other news that was popped up. So let's go for it. No, Kundan, how you doing? What's the word?
I'm good, good. Yeah.
All right. So what you got?
So yeah, my news is, actually relevant to me personally.
Yes.
Um, so when some people say the personal is political, this is a perfect example of that, right? Because I'm Hindu, who grew up in a Buddhist country, so I also have, you know, um, I also consider myself Buddhist and also Sikh.
Yes.
And they're all what's part of the Hindu Sanatana Dharma, their own Dharmic cultures. So there is a Hindu-phobic bill that is going through the various stages of the California Congress. And because we keep fighting, each time it goes through another stage, it does get uh, a little bit less harmful, right?
Okay.
Because in the original bill they included the word Hindu, and then when it reached there, by the time it reached there, so when it was first it passed the California Senate at that time,
Yeah.
it used the word Hindu, and then but by the time it got to the House Judiciary Committee, which is another stage in the process, like I'm finally like learning how a bill gets passed in the state,
Mm,
through like watching this in real time, right? I'm learning the political process as I go. I didn't even know that it has to go through so many like committees, and stuff. Um, but yeah, so it just passed the House Judiciary Committee 9-0, pretty much unanimously with 2 absent, right?
okay.
Because there were 11 people. But in this new version, they amended the bill again. This time they completely removed the word South Asia, when previously I think they mentioned it like 65 times. Now it's 0 times, right? And the word caste, they reduced it to just one time
Yeah.
mention, and then they put it as a subcategory of ancestry, right? Um,
Oh,
which first of all, by the way, the law is unnecessary because it's already what they're trying to do is already protected by uh, race, gender, creed, religion, and also especially ancestry, right? It's already just unnecessary, it's insulting, but also it's harmful to, uh,
hmm.
especially in the original version, it's harmful to South Asians, especially Hindus, because it's gonna like label them as uh, because there's no facial neutrality. It's going to label them by the way they look, by their last names, even by their dietary restrictions. Like if they're vegetarian, they're going to be targeted for possible lawsuits, unnecessarily, just because of their dietary restrictions.
Mm.
And on top of that, on top of that, some people don't even know their caste, right? So not only is it Hindu phobic, but ironically, even though they claim to be against caste discrimination, because a lot of people don't know their caste at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is it gonna define caste, or how is it gonna like be like, oh, if you don't know your caste, how is it gonna prove a caste discrimination? Then the state would be like forced to assign a caste to that person, which ironically is exactly what the British colonizers did in India.
Uh-huh.
They created the caste system and they started assigning castes to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is similar to what the Portuguese and the Spanish did over in South America.
Yes.
But the difference is because the Portuguese created their caste system, uh, and so did the Spanish. It's a little bit, each one is a little bit different because one is based on profession, and then the
Yeah.
other caste system is literally based on skin color and how mixed you are with European blood,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that's why you have the mestizos, the mulattoes,
Yes.
right? They
Mm-hmm.
even created a hierarchy between the Spanish that were born in Spain and Europe and
Yeah.
the Spanish born in New Spain, which is South America, right? Where they were like, even if you're Spanish, you're born in South America, you're lower class than those born in Europe. That's how like, you know, cruel and extreme and ridiculous they were, right? And they created a similar system in India that British did,
Yeah.
based on the Portuguese and Spanish casta system. Because first of all, caste, the word caste comes from the Spanish Portuguese word casta. So,
Mm.
but in India it was a lot worse because they deliberately mistranslated Hindu texts and then started kidnapping Hindu children and then forcing them into the colonial schools and
Yeah.
training them for generations, making them think that it's a Hindu thing, even though it's their own invention. So it's the ultimate gaslighting. They blamed it on Hindus. This never happened in South America, right? Where at least those South Americans know that the caste system is not theirs, right? Even if they bought into it right now because of the very deeply ingrained colorism, right?
Yes.
Uh, but they know it's not their thing, right? Whereas Hindus, a lot of Hindus themselves, like they believe this lie, right? So that's why we have to do the work of decolonizing, educating people. There are books you can read. One is this book, God's Conversion and Colonial Conspiracy. Another one is this book, Caste is Not Hindu, right? Where the subtitle is Caste is a, the subtitle title is British, Spanish, Portuguese Sistema de Casta, right? That's it explains the history of it, how not only did they pass these laws that created the caste system, including criminalizing certain tribes, you
Yeah.
know, making them literally untouchable. They call them
The
untouchable.
touchables. Mm-hmm.
So, and because they were criminalized from the time they were newborn babies, and people were afraid to be associated with criminals, that's how they, one of the ways they became untouchable. Another way they became untouchable was they were literally forced to work, cleaning literal poop, right? Like they were forced into those professions. The third way they created that particular caste or casta, which is the untouchable, or right now known as the Dalits.
Yeah.
Uh, is they would kidnap uh, the missionaries would kidnap Hindus one by one, and because they knew that beef was taboo to Hindus, they
Yeah.
would like rub their lips with beef, uh, declaring them untouchable among their people. So all of these are ridiculous, cruel ways. You know,
Yes.
they've used rape as a way of making people untouchable. So many different ways, and so it's but the cruelest thing is making them think it's ours, right?
Yeah.
Because and they did that because you would only accept such a system if you think it's your own, right? And so, by the way, in India right now, caste is actually illegal, right? Uh,
Yeah.
in fact, this is why recently one of the opposition leaders uh, was tried and put in jail because he made a caste slur against the prime minister, not just prime minister, but anyone with his last name, right? He called
Mm.
them basically like the Modis are the thieves. It's basically what he said, which is a
Okay.
caste slur, like so in a way. And and so yeah, that's and increasingly right because this is also related to the fact that India's own election, this is just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, it's also in 2024. The general election for prime minister because they do it every 5 years. We do it every 4 years, but
Yeah.
this time it's on the same year.
Yeah.
And if you look
Mm-hmm.
at a lot of Western media, Western reports, right, there are
Yeah.
increasing reports about, which are by the way fake bias reports that India is backsliding into the from democracy, right?
Yeah.
Even though India is, first of all, the birthplace of democracy. It's not Greece. Look it up. That's another lie that they told you, right? It's not Greece. India is the birthplace of democracy.
Mm.
And second, India has 2,000 political parties with over 20 ruling various states. And the party of the ruling national government rules for only 5 states. And even those 5 states, I've noticed that some of them are actually coalition governments, meaning they're
Yes.
coalition with other parties. So compare that with the duopoly that is the United States, the two-party system. So just looking at that alone, you forget about the coup attempts and all that, right? The
Yeah.
Trump thing, all of that. Just looking at that alone, which country is backsliding from democracy,
Yeah.
right? Look at
Mm-hmm.
so the hypocrisy, right, of that, and also the superiority complex with the gall of wanting to claim of trying to pick India in this way. So
Yeah.
it's all connected. So I'm trying to educate people as much as I can on this because that's what this show is about, right? Keep your eyes and ears open, right?
Yeah.
And then it also goes back to the fact that another reason for why they created the caste system is also because they wanted to convert Hindus and Buddhists and Sikhs into Christianity, right?
Yes. Yes.
And and so this also related to the doctrine of discovery, which stated that any Christian going to a foreign land can just claim that land as their own, that they own that land just by the fact that they've discovered it. And the natives living on it don't have a
Yes.
right to that land. They only have the right of occupancy, not ownership. And even that right of occupancy can be abolished. That was the doctrine of discovery, which, by the way, it's only from reading this book and then doing further research I learned that it's never been revoked, which means it's still in place.
Yeah.
They're still operating by it. They might not do it in the same
What's up,
extreme way
Smiley?
because they don't have the same military power. I mean, they have the
Yeah.
same military power, but they can't do it as blatantly because Now more people see that it's morally wrong, right?
Yeah.
But clearly they're probably doing it in other ways, like economically through staging military coups. They're still doing the doctrine of discovery because
Yeah.
Indonesian people have repeatedly asked him to revoke it at least 3 times, right? And the latest was in 2022, last year. And this time, they made like one small little, very tiny little, gesture, which is a full apology or fake apology, where they were like, "Oh, we're sorry this happened, but we're not to blame. Like it was just misused."
Of course. I mean, that's always what we would call what a just a PR move. It's
Right.
a general statement just to appease folks
Exactly.
when not
Yeah.
necessarily it's true. There
Right.
at this point, all governmental type tricks in politics, that's why people nickname it politricks, is it's literally learning how to slick talk to folks and still get your agenda across regardless of what it is. Be like, oh
Right.
yeah, no,
Exactly.
no, it's not a problem happening there. And then if it is a problem, like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this other outside force has kind of hindered us being able to provide y'all with the proper information. So yeah, it was their issue. So that's what's going on. So we're
Right.
still doing
Exactly.
our part, but
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm glad you
The
brought this up.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it's
This is
very
the attitude. This is related to the saviorism, the savior complex of a lot of Western liberals, right? By the way, I'm against the Western conservatives too. So every time I speak against Western liberals, that doesn't automatically mean I'm right wing or conservatives. I'm neither. Right? Just to be clear, I'm very like decolonial, and I understand that both Marxism, and leftism is as
yes, yes,
colonial as
yes,
capitalism. It's the same.
yes.
They were both created by white men. So, anyways, but I keep talking about Western liberals because they're more manipulating. The conservatives. We know they hate us. Like so, like they're honest. So I don't have no complaints. I'm
Overt.
like, okay, I know you hate us, so it's okay.
We
There's
know where
nothing
we
to
stand.
clarify. Yeah, we know where we stand. You don't know where you stand with the Western liberals, right? Which is why there's a Malcolm X quote about they're both smiling, but one pretends. They both show their teeth, but one pretends they're smiling, right? Whereas the other, they're smiling. But yeah, the modus operandi of Western liberals is they always forget that they created the problem.
Yeah.
Then they go to these countries to save us from the problem they created.
Mm.
Good Casteism is a great example, but another example is the fact that in a lot of former British colonies, the homophobic anti-homosexuality law, you know, uh,
Yeah.
is still operating there in many of these former colonies, right?
Yes.
And India, by the way, is the only country that has finally outlawed it. Even India did it only in 2018, right? So it
Hmm.
took 7 decades even for India. Uh, but it's still in place, and the Western liberals will pretend, oh, look at these savages. They don't say that because you can't use the word savage anymore. So they make a narrative, right? It's the same
Yeah.
thing. They paint a narrative that we're savages by saying this. Oh, look at these homophobic people. It's not that they were
Yeah.
homophobic from the beginning. It's because of colonialism. Same thing with transphobia. You
Yeah.
know, we had gender
Camden.
diversity. Yeah.
Hmm.
But anyway, so just educating people on these tricks and these manipulations as also related to the current news because you got to understand the context of manipulation behind it.
Yes. I mean, there's multiple layers to it. Honestly, the caste
Yeah,
system is everywhere, and not even in the name that we speak on it. It's just been remixed, reinvented, and just revisioned in different ways.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
again, I'm glad you bring it up. Even back in, if for those folks who are followers of the Bible and stuff, I'm not necessarily, but
yeah,
there even had honestly, I think of classism almost in a way that is a caste system in a way because that's more so having to do with the economical side of that. But I know again, there's much more that can be said about that. But
yeah. I
did
mean,
you have any others?
The Portuguese caste system, I think the Portuguese version was classist because it starts with, the king and pope at the top, then the aristocracy, then farmer, and then the slave. So that was a classist caste
Hmm.
system, right? So
Hierarchy is another way.
hierarchies, right? Exactly. The difference is that in India, they started claiming that this has been for thousands of years and that this is a Hindu thing, when it's not, right? Hindus have their own system called the Varna and the Jati system, right? The Varna system was horizontal, it wasn't hierarchical,
Okay.
and it wasn't based on birth. You were not born into it, and you could change it, right? You could develop the skills, you could get an education, and you can change it. And on top of that, it was more of a philosophy. It was
Yeah.
never like actual ground reality, right? And then there was a Jati system, which was ground reality, but again, it
Okay.
wasn't hierarchical. It was just a way of categorizing either tribes either by community or by profession, because some
Yeah.
tribes literally became a tribe out of a certain profession that they had, right? And so the British basically combined these philosophies with the Portuguese and the Spanish casa system, and then made it look like a Hindu thing and created their own twisted version, right? Now, what's interesting, because it's interesting you say what you said, right? Because uh, before they changed it from Hindus to South Asians, right? In
Yeah.
between that period, they did a move where they started expanding the lie against
Hmm.
Hindus to everyone. They were trying to claim that the caste system is basically a black-brown indigenous thing that has been for thousands of years. They
Yeah.
were basically trying to blame it on Africans, on South Americans, on Asians, on all of us that they created. The lie that they made against Hindus, they started trying to expand the lie and be like, oh, actually, it's not ours, it's yours.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was like, whoa, like now it's even worse, right? It's where it's like they're literally blaming a white supremacist colonial system into like, it's like flipping the narrative. Now they're
Yeah.
blaming it on all of us so that we have even more self-hatred, even more division among us, you know.
That's the agenda behind it, and that's the reasoning behind all of this stuff. Again, you point the blame at the next person, so then after that, it's up to them to take that on or not. And when they do, it creates even more division. So I feel you on that one,
Right.
and I hear you on
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to stick to it for too long, but I appreciate it. Shouts out to everybody. But now we're gonna be moving
There's
to the
division
next
even
topic.
with the news about affirmative action, right? Where now it's being made to be like something between Asians and blacks being against each other, right? Asian and black people against each other, where it's like because some Asians felt that it was discriminating against them, when in reality, you know who benefited the most from affirmative action?
Yeah,
White,
it's white
white
women.
women.
Uh huh.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like they're making us fight against each other. Meanwhile, they're the ones that benefited the most. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. But with that, no more news. Y'all want
no
some
more
more news
news,
again?
yes.
Y'all could go check that out. And I'm not talking about just watching news on the TV. You can go and read this stuff yourself as well too. But with that being said, I know Kunin, you're already on here, but I'm gonna give my spiel before we get to the next topic. For those who want to join, again, it's my disclaimer. Anytime that you're joining the live, you're interacting, I really do appreciate it and I'm grateful for it. If you're comfortable to come on and be seen on the live, just know that this will be posted on Instagram and YouTube later. So that means you do bring that you're right that you want to join. If you do not, again, you can add yourself within the comments and you can continue to talk from there. But other than that, that is my disclaimer. So if you want to, please, I appreciate it. If not, it's all good. We in the comments. But with that being said, we'll move to the next topic. And the next topic that we're going to be talking about is the single life. Okay, what do you mean when we talk about the single life? In this particular case, it's in relationships wise. It's been a very, I don't even say heated topic, but it's been the talk as of late for a lot of us, a lot of stuff, especially within the US and just population wise. This has been something that's brought up. So I just wanted to talk about it today. We're gonna see where we go with it. But before I end up doing that, why why even care about being single? What does being single even do for you as a person? Does it help you improve on anything? Does it promote any type of learning? Does it promote any type of healing? What does it do for you to be single? Why not be in a relationship? Why not work it out with somebody, even with the ups and downs? Why be on your own? Again, I'm throwing questions to y'all for y'all to even ask yourself. And even if you're not single, you're already in a relationship, or you may end up being married, or any type of union that you do have. What was your experience of them being single, and then the difference between now you being in a relationship or that type of union? What does that look like for you? For me, I can only speak on, of course, my relationship, at least status. And in that particular case, again, I am single, and this is by choice. There is a multitude of explanations of what that can be, where you can put yourself, whether if it's behind some type of philosophy or if it's behind some type of thought. But in my case, I can only speak for me being single and some of the reasons why I choose to be single. And one of them for sure is me, especially in the US. Finances is a thing. It's the number one, at least for me, is that me, I am not financially there where I want to be. And in the US, usually around this time, especially for a man, whoever you want to end up saying, our financial stride, if you're not in a particular, at least field of work, it takes, you're literally not making at least a comfortable wage roughly around until about like your mid 30s to late 30s, if not almost into your 40s. I mean, luckily, if you're are blessed, or I should say you find that way in there early on to be able to find those means anything or anywhere, shape, or form, kudos to you. For most of the folks that I do know, again, you're still doing jobs that is just barely getting you by, just over broke jobs, and the cost of living is raising while what you're making hourly is not balancing out. So for me, the reason why I'm staying single, because of the fact that shoot, I wouldn't be able to I'm barely able to provide myself with some food, water, and other things of that sort. So think about with another person, and I get it. You can collaborate, you guys can work it out together, and you do a whole 50-50, whatever situation that may be. But I will say there is a whole span of stuff that's happening now, especially in the US, that a lot of that's not necessarily the, you're gonna say the norm, or just folks willing and wanting to do that. So I guess there are pros and cons to being single and not being single. Yes. Can only be single if you refuse to have a relationship with yourself. It's all the same work in the end. Can only be single if you refuse to have a relationship with yourself. I got it. One. Check in onto the Teamsters Union. I don't even know what that is, my G. But good to see you up in here, Wolfpack Records. What's the word? Good to see you in here. Yeah. And Camden, yeah. Flesh that out a little bit, or speak a little bit more on that, Camden, what you mean. But it is very important for, and that's one of the reasons, again, why you wouldn't want to jump into a relationship, is really learning yourself. And I know it's not going to be a lifelong process, but being able to just set yourself in that particular realm before even reaching out to others. Because, again, we speak about being trauma informed as well as being able to go to therapy and work out a lot of those things, because science has at least done studies that have shown that trauma is generational, and it does pass down in some way, shapes, or form within the genes. So that's a lot of things to take into consideration when thinking about it. But let's see, he says, please look it up. Good money for anyone looking. All right. Appreciate it, Wolfpack. I'll check it out, and then I'll see for other folks to dive into it if need be. But thank you for that. Appreciate it. But yeah, go ahead, Kundan. I see you got something right there. Go for it. I'm gonna keep
Yeah,
going back and forth, but go for it.
I mean, I am single, and I think we haven't done this in a long time, but I just thought about how there are pros and cons to both, right? To being single
Yes.
and to not being single. You know, like a pro to being single could be like you
Yes.
could be more focused, right? So you're not um, distracted by a relationship, right? Um, but then, if you think about it, that's only if the person you're with, the relationship, is bringing you down or is actually is distracting, right?
Yes.
So this is why it's important to find the right partner because if you have the right partner, then that partner can actually support you or even give you feedback. Like
Yes.
if you're an author, the person can help you give feedback to your novel after reading the first draft and be like uh, be like one of their supporters so that you can become even more focused on the conflicts, right?
Yeah.
But boy, if you're with the wrong person, it's like they will take away everything. They'll take away your money, and I've already witnessed, personally in my life, not in my life, but in someone
Yeah.
close to, where this person had a joint account and literally had to eventually create a separate single account and transfer almost all his money to the single account, right? That's how bad it became, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, because in a joint account is also the other person's money,
Fish bunny.
technically,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it becomes very blurry, like what's yours and what's mine. And when there's not proper boundaries or the other person doesn't respect the boundary,
Yeah.
and especially if only one person's working and the other person's not, the
Yeah.
person not respecting the boundaries is the person not working and living off, the other person. Yeah, it creates this very bad power dynamic as well,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so I could see why some people might actually choose to be single, where maybe
Yes.
they're afraid of being with the wrong person, for example. Right?
I can do whenever you're ready. You can put it in
Yeah,
the comments and explain. But
yeah,
and to
yeah,
go off of that even more with you, it's I spoke about this on another podcast in the show that you really have to come to the table, whatever table, house, whatever analogy you want to use when you're speaking with a person, and get down to the core reason of why you guys are going to be in a relationship. What are y'all really building and aiming towards? And on that route, what are the supports and again, in between jobs and duties of each other to help this work? So if there's a lot of things that y'all don't see eye to eye with, and you're going to see that it's going to become a deterrent down the line, then why? I'm not saying, of course, a person's worth is whatever it is. Again, there's matches for others, and then there's others that it just doesn't work out a particular way. But if you don't start that from the beginning of, like you're saying, setting the boundaries, knowing, okay, this is how, I feel supported. Some people like using the love languages to help with assessing those things of sorts, just any way that you can communicate across the other person. This is how I work and what works for me, and how can I support and also work for you? Because at the end of the day, relationships it's not about me, it's we. And you have to be able to honor, you have the respect there, you have the loyalty, you also have the commitment, and it is going to be, again, part of a sacrifice that you make, and you have to be willing to do those things. If you're not, then of course you say you can do what you can do bad all by yourself. That's that there.
yeah.
But
What
with
about people who don't choose to be single but are single either because they're a-holes or, or for lack of a better term, they just don't have game, right?
mm, so a lot, this is where, and then again, I'm still learning. I don't know everything, y'all. I'm still learning as I'm going too. But a lot of those folks, because there's a such thing again as involuntary dating or involuntary, celibacy, which then there's a whole area of folks that, incels and all these little
Yeah,
key,
that's become like
key
a bad,
words.
like it become an
Yeah.
insult, right?
Yes. But
Yeah,
partly because of what happened is at some stage and point in their life, again, we gotta really think back to not only the generations prior, but how you were raised. Because if you weren't shown these things, there's a such thing as observational learning. If you did not observe these things as a child or as a kid, that your parents would show, either if it was positive relationships, toxic relationships, how to interact with others, all these life skills. Kundan, I don't know if you like real close to the fan, but it's like really rolling,
Oh, yeah.
and it makes it harder for these people to be able to find themselves within society and working along the way of knowing what to do, when and where, what, as well as we also take into consideration folks who do start off with some type of impairments that have a difficulty understanding different type of social emotional cues and things of that sort. But people say this, I find it to a degree true, but at the same time, there's always somebody on this earth for you. It's just a matter of where. And then the culture itself also can either help support that or it can hinder that. So for those folks who are the a whoever else is, again, they've learned that from their parents or their upbringing. Whether if it was, I didn't like what I saw, so I'm gonna do the complete opposite of what I saw, or they were like, okay, I see that this worked, but because I look the way that I look, you know what? I do whatever I want. It don't even matter. But yeah, all right. Let me go ahead and let me speak on what Comic Kingdom has. I'm gonna put it out there and we're gonna continue. It says every relationship you have with others involves taking care of the self, healing, and growth within yourself. The relationship with ourselves is a foundation of all others, and if we do not take care of that, then all others will not have the ground to sustain. If we ignore these parts of ourselves and have no relationship with these traits within ourselves, all relations will struggle and we will be single forever because we leave ourselves single. I get you. Now, I understand what you're talking about. That's why they talk about self-love. For me, the basis of knowledge of self, knowing yourself, is it precedes, to me, it precedes all. Because then if I don't really know about myself, how am I going to know how to either love you, respect you, show you the kindness and things of this sort if I don't even know how to do that for myself? Again, I can observe that from my parents or observe that from anybody who's my caretaker. But then at the same time is, when do I decide to take that in for myself? And if I decide not to take any of those things in for myself, it's going to be a very tough road. You can still get by, but is it going to be quality when it comes to relationships as well as quality of life? Some people can argue, yes. I'm not going to argue the outlier. We're talking more so in general, because at the end of the day, a lot of us is not normal, but we are average. We are not no below average, above. There's majority of folks that fall on that scale is going to be on the average. So how does this apply to just in general everyone else? And yes, I do agree with most of what you said in the statement. Just working on yourselves. There is a way to do that also in a relationship, but again, it starts going back wherever it's at the table, the house, whatever you set that relationship in the beginning. You have to make it very clear, make it as concise as you can, or if you have to make it as lengthy, make sure the other person knows. Because if not, then again, you're just carrying on more stress, more drama, more trauma, all of that stuff. Not even trying to rap, but there it go. So another, since you're doing pros, and I know you did a con, another pro of again being single, and this is where a lot of us, I learned it very very early on, so it didn't hurt me as much. But this is something for a lot of us. Being single can either be a pro and a con, but I want to focus on it being a pro. Is learning how to be lone, alone, not lonely, but alone. And what I mean by that is, oh yeah, you muted, but as you
I said
said,
I've
Kim,
written a poem about this where there is a difference between loneliness and aloneness. But
yes,
anyways, go on.
yes, but being able to sit with yourself in the silence, just be with you, find joy from being with yourself before you can pass that on to others. So my point with this is you learn how to take in everything internally and work on internal stuff so that all other external stuff is actually an addition. It's not what is required. Like, oh, for me to find joy and be happy and be able to be alone, oh, I need Kundan to always come and check in on me. That's the only way that I'm going to be happy. Like, you can't bet on outside forces being your drive for that. You have to do the internal work for that to be, oh, everything else is like, oh man, it's like a surprise. It's like you got a gift every single time. Like, grateful, the gratitude just comes without you even knowing, just because of the fact that, like, I already got a lot of joy. Like, now I get what it means to be alone. I was in that being very uncomfortable, but now, since I practice doing that a lot, I'm not surprised that for some reason a lot of people come and surround me at times. And it's because of the fact that you got to sit there alone. You know how it feels, you know what it is, and you're not afraid of it. What we're doing is we're fearing ourselves into that because of all of the active things happening in the world. We have to be up, catching up with the Joneses. We have to keep up with the latest technology, latest gossip, latest news for sure, because you want to make sure that you're in a safe environment, as well as what is happening, but not letting us overwhelm ourselves to a point where we forget that that's the main point, is that who's living this life? You. So how are you going to improve if you constantly decide to neglect that part of yourself, not sit with yourself, and then just tumble through life like still trying to be like, okay, why am I still feeling this way? You haven't even said hi to yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, because you can be lonely even in a relationship, right? I wrote a poem about that too, where it's like you can be lonely in a relationship if the person you're with
Yes.
doesn't really see you and you don't feel seen, you don't feel heard, you don't feel truly felt and truly met because the person is not truly feeling you and meeting you, right? And in a
Yes.
way, that's even worse than being lonely when you're alone because now, like, you're with someone who's like constantly pulling you down, right, or pushing you
Yes.
down. Whereas there is no extra factor when you're lonely, when you're alone. You
Yes.
can actually, get better. You can actually, like, even if you're just distracting yourself by scrolling on social media, it's not the best way to, get over your loneliness. But there's even that can be is better than being with somebody
Yes.
pulling you down, right?
Yes.
Like, but there are other more healthy ways of being alone when you're feeling of coping with loneliness when you're alone is basically to sit with it, to to sit in silence with it. Some people might call that
Yes.
meditation, but to really face yourself. You know.
Yes. And to add more to your point too, is loneliness or being alone also helps to address and maintain insecurities. And I'm gonna tell y'all now, as much as we can say insecurities are a negative thing, guess what? They're a part of life. And just because you think you address an insecurity and you don't think it's there anymore, I'm gonna let you know now. You're just maintaining it. There's nothing wrong with the insecurity. It's telling you that something right now just is not making sense. It's not, you're not secure in what's going on right now. So how do we get ourselves there? Or at least understand why we're feeling that way. So being alone helps you to address it and be able to maintain those things. So then when you do get to a next step of that, which is if you want to enter a relationship again, a lot of people choose if not to, that they don't want to be in a relationship, but others want to, you know, you done the work. So you already got your homework, you got your 5, 10, 15, 20-page paper in your mind ready to simplify it to the person you're in a relationship with, of what you did and how that ends up working out. You'll be ready and they will have a better understanding. But I will tell you this, and people use it a lot. It's a very trendy word, and it's a number of times. It's vibes. It's the frequency, all that, through it off. Like, but the honest truth is, more work that you do for yourself and you add to yourself, your realm of people you attract to you is on par where you want. Because at least for me, I'll tell you now, there'll be points and times where if you're not on the same frequency or the same quote unquote vibe as other people, it's as if you're invisible to those people. And you're only attracting what you want to see or who you want to be or who you already are. So if you are attracting a relationship, you want in a certain person like this, and that. And I'm not even talking about manifesting. This is just you being yourself. There's going to be a lot more of those opportunities for you to have relationships like that versus what is bombarded on social media. Because I can say sometimes, I won't lie, there's parts in my mind that want to buy into all the, you see why there's so much toxic relationships of like, oh, people doing dirty for the other person, this and that. But when I go out there myself and I'm walking around, I'm already visual and I'm already seeing. I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely one. No disrespect. I'm like, this is not a person. I'm like, I wouldn't even regularly interact with this person, so I didn't even see a relationship like that happening. Or in the same token, I'm not seen in that particular way either, because I could be seen as either as this nerdy, end up being seen like, oh, he's too straight edge, he don't look excited and boring. To a number of things that add to that, but these are markers as well as identifiers for yourself to be like, well, oh yeah, remember, we talk about red flags, green flags, all of that stuff applies to you started doing that here. So now you're aware of this stuff. So you won't get yourself into a situation that you don't necessarily want because of the fact that you already have those boundaries set. You have the work that you've done. So honestly, it comes down to when you see that stuff and you decide to still stay on it, that's because, again, that's on you.
Right. The other thing is like dating for hookups versus dating for either marriage or even a long-term relationship. It's I think there's a lot of blurring of the lines. At least I noticed in the United
Yes.
States, where it's like if you are dating for marriage, how are you going on a Tinder date with somebody, right? When you don't even know their character, their values, you don't even know if your values match up, right? It's like, I mean, if you're dating for a hookup, no judgment, fine, Tinder is fine. You can go out with somebody you don't even know, right?
Yeah.
Uh, you can even just go by physical characteristics, right? If that's what you're into. And this is where I read in the book Deeper Dating how there's a difference in culture between American dating and dating in France, for example, where
Yes.
he
Oh,
was
yes.
saying that people don't really go on dates the way we do here. Like there's no like going to dinner or stuff like that. Whereas in France, like there's a lot of parties that people go to, and at these parties, they might meet someone again and again and talk to them again and again. And over time, if they end up liking each other, they might be like, "Hey, can we just go for a walk away from this party for a little bit?"
Yep.
And that's basically their so-called date, that walk.
Yeah.
That's their first date. The second date might be different, but that's basically the first date. Right?
Again, the US is not the purveyor or just the end all be all when it comes to knowledge, relationships, all of this stuff.
I always keep
We're still
reminding
the
people. That's why I
babies.
always keep
We are
reminding people,
still
be
the
like, Americans are not the only humans on Earth.
yes. We are still babies compared to everybody else when it comes to historical history. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
we, even
And
though
wouldn't
people are
you
trying to
say the
look at
French
us,
way is a little more healthy?
yeah. It said, with the rate of American divorce, marriage might be the wrong goal. Oh, I'm gonna tell you now. This is
Possibly,
what.
yes.
Look, yeah, look. This is part of the reason why I wanted to speak on this. And then when we
Yeah,
get
that
into the
does
last
bring up a good
question,
segue. Like I
yes,
was going to ask you,
yes,
why are you single? Why do you choose to be single? Right?
yes.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna answer it. And then let me first do Camden. So yes, what Kundan was even speaking on, because of how our society, at least in the U.S., speaking U.S., U.K. is also experiencing some of this stuff because, but guess what? We neighbors. So what I have seen in this change, of course, of the dynamic in the shifting of roles and okay, who's supposed to do what, when, and where. There's a lot of confusion, and because of the fact that we have the whole thing between modern and traditional. There's such things as trad, all these other terms or colloquial terms that are being used. The system of the past, when it comes to marriage, has no standing, at least from my perspective right now, to the system that's in place now. And the reason being is it is an incentive. It's an incentive based system. No disrespect for women. And the reason why I'm saying this is because of the fact of what it used to stand for back then has really no credence till now. Back then, when it came to marriages, of course, there's the alimony. There was the you had to pay a tawdry, like a dowry. All these different things came into play. Yes, the definition of marriage has definitely changed nowadays. And back then, that was a point of security for, of course, the mother, the wife, because the job was for her to be at home, raise the children, and do this. And then again, for like 20 some 30 some years, and then she's never again went out into the job force in that particular area. Where is she gonna be able to have money or any type of support? So in that particular setup, that's why at least marriage in that case, especially marriage was made especially to keep the crux of our nation, which is the family, together. That was that type of contract to keep that together. Fast forward to today, be of hookup culture, sprinkles of, and I say feminism honestly is not the only thing that's done it, but it's literally the one that's very commercialized now, has done a huge detriment to the relations between just persons, and specifically for me, speaking in my case, between men and women, in particular heterosexual relationships. And again, we forget that what's the main point of people coming together? It's just not, oh, hook up, okay, nope, see you, and that's it. No, it's really to start building families, because how can a society function without the core of a family? And yes, we can have all various different types of families, but with us not having that particular value, marriage just becomes that business contract. Okay, we're gonna be together, and even the vows in itself are also contradictory, because it's gonna say to death do us part. So how are we getting divorces? Nobody ain't passed on to the next life, but how are we letting that be done? And I'm not saying, okay, you get in there and you pick the wrong person. Okay, you want to resolve the marriage. That's again a whole nother different story. But you have to be able to understand this whole lingo. But for me, it's definitely changed, and it makes little to no sense nowadays to get married, because of the fact that of how pop culture and just our culture in general has shifted away from the importance of raising a family to it's about me. And we've already talked about that before, about the difference between Eastern and Western, at least ideology, when it comes to
Yeah, like
individualism versus
Americans tend
communalism.
to like look down on our arranged marriages in India and even my country, Burma, right? Where they're the same energy that I expressed earlier, where they're, oh, look at these savages, right?
Yeah.
That attitude, oh, poor them, like, but it's not the way, I don't know how it is in the old days, but today it's not like, the way the Americans fantasize, not like they're arranged from birth as babies.
Yeah.
That's not it. It's
Yeah.
more like today, at least today, it's more like the families, the parents would arrange for the children to meet each other and actually feel each
Mm-hmm.
other out first.
Yes.
And if they don't like each other, they don't marry. It's like, that's basically the arranged marriage today in India and also my country. Like, uh, at least the Hindus do it that way, and I
Yeah.
think some Buddhists there as well do it that way.
Yeah.
And the logic is more that we trust the wisdom of our elders
Yes.
and the decades of experience that they've had, and also the families know each other. And like, even in some cases, the kids might even have already met each other or at least seen each other briefly through like the various family functions,
Yes.
similar to the parties in France, right? So it's like there is that communal like knowing of each other. There is that trust where like you're not really marrying a stranger the way it's depicted in the West. No,
Yeah.
it's actually the opposite, where it's actually safer because now the families know each other, and if there's a problem, we can actually hold each other accountable, etc., etc. It's better that way in that sense, where it's like,
Yes.
whereas over here, like, and this is how you end up, with things like ghosting and all that over here as well, you
Yes.
know,
I will
you know.
say this, adding to your point. That's why
Yeah.
there's a such thing. Even I've seen in Japanese culture through anime, which may not is not also always a depiction, but even here, there's a such thing as childhood friends and literally families
Right.
who are very close knit communities. So a lot of really more so towns, not always like the inner cities because it's such a huge wide thing. But if you're very communicative in that particular case, you would already be exposed to knowing already people. Because again, a lot of folks build relationships because to people that are very close in vicinity. It's more that versus you see now these whole long term relationships or long distance relationships, all and things and stuff like that happening. This all started to become more as of as of late because of not only just technology, but in a sense of just in this case because of the changing of the structure of society. That's why these types of relationships started to become more of a thing. But even back way when, like, you had family functions, you would is really because of the close knit community stuff is where you would have that stuff, and as well as the discernment, like you said, of elders, but discernments of like your parents and your family members, like going through and vetting people that you are around to then be able to give you that advice. So literally having to go and ask the parents to either engage in a relationship with said daughter, or even if you
Right.
want to said son, the parents already be looped in. They would already have a good eye on, okay, is this someone that would be good for my son? This one would be good for my
Right.
daughter.
Exactly. Yeah.
But now, since we don't
And
have that structure happening so
right.
often, who's
Adding to what you
really
said,
guiding?
Americans, right, look down on that and be like, oh, because they're really into their individualism, independent. They're like, oh, you don't have to ask for your parents' permission. No, it's not
Yeah.
like that. It's not like asking for permission. It's more like that vetting, like you said. There is a certain amount of, looking for approval, but even
Yes.
that's not a bad thing. We're human. We're like, of course, we want our parents' approval. They gave birth to us and they raised us. Of
Yes.
course, we want our parents to approve of the person that we choose to be with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I'll tell you now, it will
like,
be a long fought battle. That's all I
yeah.
would tell you now. Is that an extra stress you want to have in your relationship? It's like, oh, dang, my mom
If the
doesn't
parents don't
necessarily
like
like
them, yeah,
because it will cause
yeah,
rifts. Like deep down, as much as we can say we can tolerate because of the fact that you either love your mom, parent, whoever it may be, there's always going to be that deep rooted, deep seated, annoyance, or maybe not going to say the word of really hatred, but just a dislike or disapproval of the person that you're engaging with from the parent. It may not always come out. It may be small, little, slight, subtle behaviors here and there, but it's always going to be there. And I'm not saying, oh yeah, you have to get someone that your parent 100% approves of. No, that's never going to happen. I can tell you that now. But again, it's the chances of it being more than the other. You're just already trying to
exactly.
doom the relationship from then. And a great example of that is that's what happened, at least with me, is I was choosing because of what I've learned growing up and then going out into the space and looking for someone. I was looking not for someone to help to build with. It was almost if I looked for someone to help, again, save them. Almost like, again, in the colloquial or at least the trendy term of Captain Save-A-Ho. I was going out there doing stuff like that without even knowing. I started noticing later on down the line it was because of the fact of what was instilled in me as a person from my mom, from my grandmother, from my family, to being able to, learn really how to treat a woman or treat a lady, which I think that's also what's been flipped in the US is women have learned what to expect of a man in respect of a relationship versus how to treat. And we've been done the opposite. We don't know what to expect of a woman, but we know how to treat a woman. So that's what, at least for me, failed because this was my first relationship ever. And I noticed like during that time, like of course I was still doing my own things. We would talk when we would talk, and it wasn't much friction in a relationship, but it was that stuff going on. And as I was learning about her and it was going back and forth, I started to see a lot of inconsistencies. But in my particular case, I ended up deciding to be like, you know what? Like I was avoiding addressing a lot of the red flags that I was seeing. There was a lot of things that we didn't link up necessarily with that made sense. And because of that fact, it made it harder and harder for me to even be like, okay, where is this even going now? Like what are we really doing with stuff? I can see some of these values you don't agree with. This is something that's going to become an issue down the line. These are some of the values that I don't agree with on yours. So what are we doing? What do you even want out of life? It seems like you
Right.
still want to do this. I'm already over here wanting to do this. It's not meeting eye to eye. So how can we have someone who wants to build the foundation, but the person who's trying to build the foundation said, "Nah, I want to build 18 houses down that way," when there's already one being built right here. So it's harder to just again get in line with that. So for me, that's one of the reasons, at least now, that I'm single is because of the fact that I'm reconstructing how I want to look at that. And to be honest with you, a lot of what I'm seeing in the US, relationships wise, is not setting up with my own values. So I'm literally, if I want to, I can sit, wait till that person appears, because this is actually how that one had happened with my relationship too. That this person just appeared and it seemed right when it wasn't necessarily that. It was fool's gold, for at least for me. But I'm literally choosing to just be within myself and do what I need to do. That if eventually I want to, I will. But in the US, I'm not necessarily thinking that I want to engage in a relationship with a woman in the US. And I'll be truthful with you too. And it's also a hesitancy because of Me Too and Time's Up culture, that at any moment in time that a woman can have, or they can say that, or some type of relationship with me, or said that they had a bad experience, they can flip it. And you're already seeing all of the other news reports of folks doing that. I'm not talking about just only the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. There is a number of other ones. I think it was just Jonathan Majors and like a few other folks. But I know that's again it could be a whole interracial thing or other things of that sort happening. But that's another thing that I have to take into consideration is, okay, the values is not linking up. We have a culture that can also incentivize taking advantage of each other. That's either multiple sides, as well as now I can be liable for stuff just because I set a boundary, and people can get upset about me setting that boundary, so they can say, oh, I had experience with this person and they're terrible. Again, the Jonah Hill one is another thing that's just came up right now. So I'm just like, you know what? I don't need all this extra stress and drama. If I meet somebody and we just talking, we chilling, cool. But I don't want to take it any further because of the fact that I already got enough issues to deal with myself. So
So that's why you're single. Yeah.
yes, and
So
honestly, yes,
so piggybacking off what you said too, like, that's an example of why the traditional way of meeting the parents first, right? Or at least like getting to know them a little bit, right, is valuable because first of all, like you would know you would know their values, and you might have some idea of how this person was raised, right?
yes,
Because you know the parents' values. Like even if the kid is rebellious and might try to be the opposite of the parents, even that is data because now you know,
yeah,
oh, there's a rebellious person, right? Especially
yeah,
if you notice the values are opposite, and that could be a red flag, or it
yes,
could be a positive as well, depending on like the context, right? So, but and even but here's an example. Another reason why it's important, right? A friend of mine from Burma, right, an Indian woman, was raised in the United States. She came like when she was only 10, right? So she was ended up being raised more with like kind of Western values, but also kind of like very confused, right? As a lot
yeah,
of as immigrants here are. And she ended up going to India, and very quickly, when she visited India, very quickly ended up marrying this random guy in India, right? And without telling her parents, and he didn't tell her parents either, right? And then later on,
yeah,
he came to the United States. So this woman is mentally ill, right? So she's on drugs for schizophrenia and all that. Anyways, uh,
ooh,
and at one point, the guy was like, because the parents were like, why didn't you tell us first? And he was like, oh, she's a modern woman. She doesn't need the parents' permission or approval, blah, 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 which, you know, from our culture, it kind of feels very rude, right? The way
Yes.
he said that. But then later on, he complained that, oh, I didn't know she had mental illness. Well, had you at least met the parents, maybe
Yeah.
they might have told you, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there you go.
Again, the beginning assessment and putting through the ringer is important.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you have to continually test all the folks and stuff like that, but I
right.
mean, you definitely want to have a good standing of where you're going to be going with this person for however a majority of your life, or if you're in different places, there's the
Yeah,
whole polygamy and all. There's so many different type of relationships that we can describe, and it will take so much longer for us to even break down. But yeah, the discernment and knowing who you are with is important, and the difference too of not only just how they are with you, but how they are with others, and then how they will function when you decide to move in with them, because that's a whole nother different realm as well. It's because then they could be this one type of person here, but then once you start living with them and you seeing them every single day for long periods of time, some people's gonna get tired. I'm gonna tell you this: shouts out to 2020 and COVID-19. It showed a lot of y'all folks who were in relationships that it was just only for a season. This was nothing that was gonna be long term. You liked the idea of being away from that person for a certain amount of time, and then when
oh,
you
I know
do
at
see
least
them,
one
it's
person who got
yes.
divorced after COVID. Like,
The funny thing is, look,
yeah,
we talking about this, but that's also the time where I ended my relationship
uh,
too at the same time,
there
which
you
is
go.
very hilarious. It's very hilarious. But I wanna let me comment on what Camden said, and then I wanna continue. So it's important definitely that you look at those red flags, and if you choose to put yourself in those situations, again, you are a partner of that. There's not to say that, oh, we're saying, oh, it's all your fault. No, but you have to be mindful that, again, and that's how I got messed up, is because I decided to not look at the red flags. And I'm gonna tell y'all how crazy, or not
Or
crazy, how
was
beautiful the universe,
you woke up with the roofie?
works.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm about to address. Yeah, I'm about to address it. But how the universe guided me towards, okay, no, you need to sit down and pay attention to this information. So I'm gonna give y'all a little story time. But Camden, I said again, I said my condolences to that happening. So again, these movements, the initial, so like the Me Too and all these other movements, the initial thought of behind it was for a positive or for a very meaningful and
Yeah, it
impactful
was
thing.
created by a black
it's
woman, right?
it's
Yeah.
an impactful thing. I'm not trying to take away anything from it. It's what happens is anything, and I haven't even talked about it in a while, but I look at a lot of things
Anything
being
and everything
neutral.
can be hijacked. Yeah.
Yes. And I look at a lot of things being neutral. The only time that it becomes either what we call quote unquote good and bad is when people put their intentions of how they use it and their intent. So it's because Me Too can also be used as in the intent to hurt and harm other folks innocently. At the same time, it quiets the voice of those folks who have been affected. So it makes it hard for, again, people to stand on, okay, what is which and what is that. Yes, all movements can get hijacked, like exactly. So I'm not saying that it's a whole terrible thing in itself. It's like, no, I'm just, it's like, because those people who it works for, they literally don't get all the publicity when it's supposed to be working for you, versus when you see the opposite of, they go after somebody and then they find out that person they was going after is innocent. Now it looks bad on y'all. And the thing is, that's just how the agenda and a lot of propaganda is propagated in the US. It's always not either only the fear mongering, but it's always what goes wrong. You barely see a lot of stuff that goes right on the news. It's always about something being dysfunctional. And that's telling y'all something. They want us to have dysfunctional relationships with each other, because if we don't know how to combine and connect with each other, then we're not going to question what they doing, because we're still questioning each other. Like, what are you doing? How are you getting this done? Why aren't you supporting my movement? Why aren't you doing this? When y'all, we should all be turning the face this way and asking, why are we not getting support from this? Why are you putting in laws that are going against what y'all are already saying, that is targeting me, that's doing this and that sort? We're too close in what we would call infighting. We're fighting with ourselves when we know who we should really be fighting with. And it's because of the fact that because we're here at the same level, we don't think we can approach them at their level. And yes, we can. But it all takes us deciding, like, okay, even Malcolm X, I can't, I don't know it and paraphrase it all the way, but literally he had a quote of saying basically being able to set aside, all your religious, whatever other affiliations, because when it comes down to game time or where we're at, we stand on something together in solidarity. We can talk about that when we get back to the house, but when we outside, we are one. I don't care if you look like this, that your head may be bigger because I want to start talking about how big your head is. Leave all of that at home. When it's time to go and it's time to work, we got to work. When we want to go back and address these things, we do it in our own house.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And,
mean, like back in the day, like Malcolm X actually created these coalitions with Japanese American activists and other Asian activists. Bec- I think partly because he wanted that unity, and because there was that coalition, like even when it comes to, like, for example, the topic of reparations for
yes,
African Americans versus the fact that Japanese Americans were put into internment camps and they wanted their own form of economic justice, right? And
yes,
because they didn't want to compete with the African Americans asking for reparations, they actually invented or created a new word. I think it was called redress or restitution.
mm,
Uh, uh, in terms of like getting actual money, cash for being put into internment camps. And
yes,
eventually they got it. I think each Japanese American got like $20,000 or something like that from the government. Uh, but but it was because of that collision that they created their own word because they didn't want to compete, right? They didn't want that
yeah,
conflict to be like because that's this specifically a black thing, you know. It's for slavery and all the other things. It's in slavery, you know.
yeah. And the thing
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
with a lot of that, and this is just from my perspective, this is not me knowing everything. I say it all the time, as well as having all of the information behind it. I'm just looking at things logically from where I'm seeing. A lot of not only the coalitions, but we have the NAACP and various groups don't come together to sit down and get across what they want to get across. Because a lot of this stuff, again, it can be done quickly through conversation. So then we know where everyone stands and what their purpose is and their intent for a lot of this stuff is. But because of the fact that happens, and again, we can show not only the solidarity in these things, but not wanting to think that we're falling on people's toes and stuff without, again, just letting folks know. I'm not saying that, oh, each coalition speaks for a whole set of a race, ethnicity, group, and things of that sort. No, but it at least starts the conversation. And it's because we decide we don't want to have those conversations. So then we have media have those conversations for us, and then we get misinformed. A lot of this stuff is meant for all confusion. That's it. It's really all meant for confusion because we know and when I say they, this can end up being a government. It could be CIA, FBI, and y'all don't get on me because y'all can go all these articles and all of these operations y'all be putting out on the internet. It's all out there for us to find. You want to say elites, whoever you want to name, they already know. Literally, they are very, very minuscule, or a small percentage, and we are a huge percentage. If this huge percentage, even 20%, I'll even go and I'll say 10%, we're all on one accord and they moved accordingly, it's a problem. Even during 2020, they had all these other different groups, not even just nationalist groups, but I know there was one black group that was teaching folks how to use guns and to prepare for, war and all these other different stuff. And the news outlets and medias was keeping an eye on them. Again, there's a list, the CIA list, for a reason. It was calling Tell Pro for a reason. They don't want someone to rise to be able to unify the people. Because when you unify even that, again, I said a 10% of the world population, it's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, the FBI is well known for even sending a letter to Martin Luther King Jr. basically telling him to commit suicide,
Yeah.
blackmailing him with all these, I guess, allegations about some things he did, like misogyny. And that's the other thing. Neither Malcolm X nor Dr. King were perfect, right? Where they had their own issues with misogyny and a whole lot of things. But here's the thing, like we look for, and that's we're buying into the good evil false binary, which is also a colonial white supremacist thing. And I
Oh yeah.
think going back to the topic, it impedes even our dating life because
Yes.
we uphold people to the same standards, which is not only detrimental, it's dangerous because now if we deem somebody as good,
Yes.
we'll not see their flaws, we'll not see the
Yes.
red flags, right? Or even not necessarily red flags, we'll not see that we're not actually compatible because we deem them as good. Good meaning perfect, right? And like they can do no wrong. That's not the case. Like we're all human, where we have good qualities and we have flaws as well.
Yes.
Right.
Again, it's reason why that binary and a lot of different types of thought is used is because as humans we're trying to understand every specific detail, everything to a little. If we can be able to put it in a very succinct and short way to identify it, that's what we're going to do. People created a lot of this thought of what we're redefining way back when. This is back with Sumer, back in Hindi, back in a lot of Eastern philosophies and cultures. This is all of the stuff we talking about. There's things you can point back and see where it is. And the way that it was brought about and addressed is definitely was, I can definitely say 10 times almost I'm not gonna go all the way 100 times better than how we are addressing it now. And it's because of the fact that we're missing out on the piece of the human connection part. We're creating
Right.
the we want the prosperity part versus the connection part. And that's why we have the system of capitalism the way it is. And you see that it basically puts prosperity or cash rules everything around me versus my relationship to you as an individual also helps me build and become a better individual.
Right.
We
Yeah.
don't see that. We don't want to see eye to eye with people because we got folks that like to be on top of other folks and not in that particular way, but they want to be like, yo, I don't have what you got. Hey, look, I got this. So that makes me have some type of, edge over you. So when I get chose for something, competition in a sense creates this, but at the same time, if you redefine how you're doing the competition, more so it's with yourself, but you're using others to help sharpen your sword and to help better your personal things, then you can see that more in a communal way versus, okay, I'm better than this person because you whack, you can't do it's there is a matter in ways of how all this used to be fluid. But in the US, they don't know how to put this stuff together. And guess what? It's done on purpose. Now, I'm
Right.
gonna let you go ahead,
And even
Kundan.
like among Western liberals, piggybacking off what you said, like they they're literally competing over who's more woke, right?
Yes.
When in reality they're literally spreading misinformation and then thinking they're woke. Like,
Yes. Oh my goodness. So hilarious. But yes, yes. Now let me tell you my story and then we'll wrap out this one so we can get into the last topic because
oh,
it
well,
is
one more
still
thing I wanted to say,
coincides.
because I was giving the first example, right, where it can be dangerous because if you see somebody as good,
Mm-hmm.
then you ignore their red flags, their flaws, or even just the fact that you're not actually compatible, so you end up in a very unhealthy relationship. But also
Yes.
conversely, if you deem somebody as evil, right, just because they made a little flaw or have a little made a little mistake or have a little or is irritating in some way, in some small way,
Yes.
then it's the opposite, where it's like where now you're giving up on somebody who might actually be compatible for you, but because you've deemed them as evil, you're pushing that person away. So it's like bad for you on both ends. You could
Yes.
end up accepting somebody with red flags, or you could end up pushing away somebody that's actually good for you.
Oh yeah. And see, that's why and I'm gonna go back to it. Being single and taking that time to learn the difference between being alone and not lonely, you at least have better system of what you're looking for, and you're able to show and see, okay, this may not be it, but I definitely see that this is more. So learning how to, I'm not going to get 100% of all that I want, but I see that there's a good 75, 80, and that 20%
Exactly.
we can work on. And I don't mind because it's manageable.
Right, it's not a deal breaker, right? So you have to know what is your deal breaker, what is your non-negotiable,
Yes.
and then, but by definition, you cannot negotiate your non-negotiable, right?
Yes.
Uh, but everything else that's just more like just irritating, but it can be negotiated. You accept that, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Now, story time before I jump into the next thing.
Yeah.
All right. So, funny, it's interesting how a lot of this did too happen once I started to go and I went into grad school. This is how a lot of stuff had happened. So, started a relationship beginning in grad school, like partway through grad school. Met this person. It was at a battle, at one of my friends' rap battles. We would talk for a while until ultimately one day I was like, you know what? Let's make this a thing. We made it a thing. First red flag that I messed up on. I ain't gonna say red flag, but first thing I messed up on is it was a long distance thing. So this was a drive. Each time to go either see each other. This is like 2.5 hours drive. So that already there, that was already a disconnect. If you think about just distance, energy, all that stuff, it's a far reaching. Second thing is each of us had multiple things going on in our life, whether if it was addressing traumas, whether if it was I was in grad school, I started then having to work full time, as well as I was going and doing internship full time. So the only times I would talk with her was when I was at my job at like 10 at night. And then the times we would meet, it would be the weekends for like 1 or 2 days. I would have to go stay over, or she'll come and she'll have to come and stay over. Again, that already creating a lot of tension there. During that time, before even we decided to get together, that whole almost 8 months to almost a year of like that quote unquote vetting process, there's a lot of stuff that she is sharing with me when she's already in another relationship, which was a toxic relationship in a sense. And I'm over here talking to her and figuring out, okay, what's going on in this? And me not already seeing that as a huge red flag. It's like she's already experienced being in something like this. And that's why I told you I learned why I had that mentality of, oh, I'm trying to save this person. Why do I need to save a person like that? Part of it too is because then look at all of the movies we always talk about. Disney, we got our Superman, Spider-Man, all of these different movies too also placate and put that whole setup of the damsel in distress, and you had to go and save them, not knowing that damsel not only has the power to be able to meet you there, but at the same time is that they help us and they don't know anything. They do. So put myself in that situation there. She gets done with her relationship. We end up starting one. A lot of the miscommunication was because of her upbringing and what she experienced and what happened to her. I'm not going to put all of her information out there. I'll just say this. We definitely came from two other worlds. So when we talked about the whole idea of opposites and we thinking that opposites attract, not for a very long time. There's just that certain period. And shouts out to Los Angeles Pro. Peace and love, brother. What's the word? So
Yeah.
getting to the main crux of it is, again, I started working full time. I was working at a transitional shelter. So I was also seeing a lot more dysfunction and things are going on. We're continuing to have talks. We're talking about future, talking about, okay, where we really wanted to take this. I'm hearing a lot of key words that's being said. I'm hearing a lot of things that is not lining up with me, whether, oh, when I have the baby, you gonna be the one taking care of the baby the whole time. I'm gonna be working in a different state. This not me. This is her. I'm like, interesting. Okay. And then talking about, oh, I haven't got to experience this particular thing. So I'm not necessarily in that range yet, but I want it. And I'll just tell you this. She was also older than me. For y'all
Oh,
that don't know, I'm over here dating someone older. And this is not even you thinking this is somebody in like they early 20s. This is someone that's
oh,
older than me. So they've already known, been seeing a lot of different things. And again, no slight to her at all. There's the stuff that I ignored and it just didn't work. But that was happening and what was going on. So it got to a point where it was just very, very obvious. I was just like, why? It's like, I don't want to do it. And part of it too is because my ego was getting mad. It was like, yo, this is your first relationship. Don't mess this up. Make this the last one. Don't come back to this field of relationships and stuff. This is it. And it feels like I failed because of the fact that I didn't choose correctly. So this was what was going all in my head. So ultimately, a lot of more signs came up. No, that was not the case. So few signs started to pop up even more. There's people on YouTube that I would watch, and for some random reason, stuff would happen, and then the YouTube videos will pop up, and it applied to me so well. I'm like, is this video like telling me my whole relationship right now? Like, what? Like, I don't get this. What's up, Kim? How you doing? What's the word? So I'm just like,
okay.
I'm like, yo, what? And then where I was working in the job, I meet another brother, which me and him is still cool to this day. He was going through very similar things. So I'm like, okay, the universe is giving me videos that's popping straight to me. I'm meeting people that's having the same experience as me. Okay, what is this telling me? So I'm like, okay, something else is just linking up. Okay, he's having the same things that's going on. Okay, what is he doing? We're talking with each other, and it's like, oh yeah, man, that's a red flag. Like I'm pointing that out to him, not knowing that that's something similar to me. Like, wow, I was not paying attention to that. And then two things that finally broke me, and I was just like, broke me in the sense of like, this is a decision I'm going to have to make. First one was, again, it came to not only child rearing, but also their perspective on how they wanted the life to progress. They're saying like, yeah, once you be at home, and then there's also another guy that I know that he's going to be living with us too. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, huh? In my head, I'm like, okay, I'm just listening. I'm like, really? And another thing is being, because of how I set my boundaries for that person, she felt that she had to walk on eggshells with me. And she felt like she couldn't fully be herself around me because of the fact of, I feel like I'll box her in. And that's where I had to really think. I'm like, yo, how do I make you feel that way? Like let me know. Like, I don't know what you mean. And then again, that's where I go back to, I didn't pay attention to the signs. She was already from one world and I was from a whole nother different world, already not meshing, thinking it doesn't work. I'm over here trying to go think I'm gonna go say this person and this is what I'm supposed to be doing because of how I was brought up. That's not the case. Again, how I learned how to treat a woman versus what to expect. I didn't I didn't learn that. I didn't know that lesson. I learned that lesson now for sure. But that was one of the first things. And the last thing that finally did it, and I was like, yo, I have to. It is this hilarious. I'm tired of this dude. Stop. And the
You
last
may need
thing,
to be a housekeeper.
yes. Stop. My goodness. So the last thing that finally was like, I'm gonna have to just look at it. I'm gonna have to call it as a loss. I learned my lesson. I take the L in this. Is at the job, I have a water jug. I will bring the water jug. There's always a specific spot I put my water jug. This one day, I go to work. I put my water right where I usually put it. There's a book, and it was from a former judge. It was called um Think Deep. Yes, it's like Think Deep Before You Leap, and this is on vetting relationships before going to marriage. And I'm like, why is this book in a specific spot that I put my water bottle every single day? Every single day. I'm like, why is that book there? So something, again, pushes me to go ahead and read it. It's a nice length of a book. And the situation also at work was I got there early. I got assigned to a person. They slept the whole shift. So I got to sit there in front of their door, sit there and read this book from cover to cover.
Mm,
So it was meant
that's
for me to
crazy.
do that. So then that's when I read that book, I was like, okay, I have my answers. Yep, that's another red flag. Yep, that's something right there that didn't make sense. Yep, I'm just going to have to chalk it up and say that's it.
Mm.
So there's just a number of things that, again, I was not only just because I was naive, but I
Not
ignore
the right
my
person.
ignorance of what I saw, thinking that I'm going to save this person and I'm going to be able to do this because this is how it's supposed to be brought up, knowing that it's going to cause me issues down the line. And how we're looking at the main thing for me is wanting to build a family. It's not the way I'm thinking that it looks, and it's not how it's going to work. So I don't want to bring any dysfunction. I already learned, for me, as being an only child and my mom being a single mother, shouts out to her, I love her. I don't want to repeat this cycle. So I want to make sure I have somebody who's there with me, not just because, oh, this feels good, the sex may be good, or whatever it is. Honestly, I didn't even really connect on that other level too. That's another different story. But again, no disrespect. So it was just not gonna work.
It must
I'm
have been
just
a short book. You read it in 8 hours. You said you read like a robot.
oh, during that time, y'all, I learned how to speed read. So that's hilarious.
Oh, there
But
you
I
go.
learned how to speed read. Yeah.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the whole moral of my story was that, again, I didn't do the vetting process properly because I already had a whole almost year or so just talking with this person, seeing what type of relationships and stuff that they already were in, and I still decided to be like, I'm gonna do this, and it's because of that's what I was seeing. This person has also shown me a lot of attention. I've never seen anybody else take that effort to do so in the past. So I was like, oh, then this must be all this stuff. So again, please vet,
Right.
communicate, and if your values and what you want don't link up, again, be single until you figure it out.
Yeah. What's the black acronym? I have no idea.
You're hilarious. So
Chicken and beef is hilarious.
because of the
Nice
fact
women
that
at the temple? What temple?
all inside jokes, Kundan, I'll tell you later. These are all inside jokes. That's why. That's why he's putting them out there.
And
There's
but
some nice women
anyways,
in the temple.
that's
Stop.
that's a great story, depicting your point.
Yes.
But I also wanted to address something you said earlier, and I have a question about that, right? Because you
Go
said
for it.
earlier there's someone for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but that makes me think about how there are all these stories of say somebody with Down syndrome and they ended up in a relationship with you know another person with Down syndrome, right?
Yes.
There are also stories with people with dwarfism and they end up with another dwarf, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's good for them and they're happy, right? And it works especially if you don't have a big ego. But
Yeah.
there's also this joke that this one comedian made where he was basically saying that nobody wants to date down. Everybody wants to either date up or date across, right?
Yes. Yes.
And even though that seems like a very cynical view, right? There is some truth to it because I think
Yes.
some of it might have to do with our own internalized classist and ableist programming, right?
Yes.
And even the desire for approval among our peers or even parents, be like, oh, look at me, I'm dating a doctor or an engineer, so I must be special, right? Or
Yeah.
I'm dating a Nobel Prize winner, so I must be really hot and likable, right?
Yes.
But how does that how does that tie in with what you said earlier about, oh, there's someone for everyone, right?
Yeah. That's what you just said. That's actually proving the point. Is that we're always going to be doing this. The reason why I will say that too is because of the fact that we forget we are still animals in ourselves. It's in our nature. The genes that we want to pass on, we want to make sure that they're strong genes. So the whole idea, they say survival of the fittest, all this other stuff, which sometimes I still have my issues with Charles Darwin anyway. Some of his stuff has
Yeah,
been disproven and things of that sort. But within the sense of nature and nurture, that it stands true. That unfortunately, again, that's why for women, after a while, a certain age that you hit, it's not only not safe for you to have children, but you have a higher chance of a child coming out with some type of impairment because that's literally how nature has set some things up. Yes, nature's cruel. Nature's not like, oh yeah, let's all be lovey-dovey and be friends. The system and the ecosystem that's created, shoot, somebody's still functioning off of somebody else. There are mutual relationships, but at the same time, there's prey, there's predators. I know I'm not trying to think of it in that. I don't want to just put it in that sense, but that's where a lot of this, our primitive stuff, is still in the back of our minds, even though we are advanced technologically as well as just societal in a sense, because of the fact that not only that we have the prefrontal cortex and stuff like that, but a lot of it's masked. But we still have that old programming that's there. So it's always going to be there underlying. So for there is someone for everyone, it also can span of like it may not just be that type of, intimate relationship. It might be intimate group relationship, because some folks, again, that's why we had those different type of hierarchies too, because people have different chosen paths in life, and then some of them, they don't end up again being part of the married life or having that type of intimate partner life. So that whole, there's everything for everyone, everyone for anyone. It can ring true in a sense, but again, there's going to be outliers. Yes, people are going to meet really more so, whether if it's evenly or if they can get a better deal. Nobody wants to feel slighted and take the other deal, because honestly, it's doing a disservice to both folks. The one person who is taking the better deal is going to feel like they have to pity the other person, and then that other person is going to pick up of them really being like, okay, I feel like I'm the one that's holding us back, and you don't want to necessarily be in any one of those particular realms. And I mean, it happens on a daily basis. And I'll say this: women have a more natural proclivity to do that versus men. And that's why you kind of saw in my, what I would say in my whole type of example too, is because we were in two different areas, is because of the fact that my innate ability wanting to protect and provide and to save in that particular case is what preceded my own thought of, okay, does this make sense for here to build? Because if I'm up here trying to pull somebody up from here, we haven't even got to the point to build yet. But you can still do it. But again, are you ready for your relationship to be a commitment, to be a sacrifice, to be a long haul, that we're going to do this together? We know where we're going. Do we have an objective? Or is this just felt right at the right time to do it? We don't know what we're doing, but we'll do something.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. In fact, the comedian made even went on to say, if because the question becomes, what about the person who ends up dating down?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, that's because the person they were dating tricked them into thinking they're equals, which is
Man.
which is where we get into all the manipulation and stuff, right? That's also
Yeah.
taught in a lot of datings, you know.
And I will say this: men are more physical and confrontational when it comes to things like that. Women have the ability to use their words. So a lot of women are a lot better at manipulation than men. And
Mm-hmm.
manipulation, not always in a negative sense. A lot of that is because it's for survival. Some of them know that they are not more physically stronger. And look, this stuff right now, I can be again getting canceled and stuff for this. But there's too much science and logic behind this stuff for you not to refute it. You can't refute some of this stuff. That's just going to be an outlier of women that's stronger than men. There's women out there that can bench press my weight. I can even bench press my weight. But we're talking about, again, in the general sense. If a woman is in danger and there's a huge big man coming at her, you think she gonna be able to fight that person off? She's not only trying to keep the person evading them away, she's also trying to say things, yelling out, doing all of this stuff to get the person to stop doing what they're doing. She got to be able to talk her way out of this stuff. Same time of literally, again, all the cold approaches of like men coming up to women and things of that sort. They had to have that defense mechanism to be able to not only shoot down the advance, but make sure that it's in some sense is clear, while at the same time knowing that yes, this is a threat. But what happens with that too is we create the narrative, which there's a lot of the narrative now on both sides, that men are evil, or men are trash, or this is all that they want from us, and vice versa with men. It's be like, okay, well, they keep saying it, so then why am I going to even approach? Why am I going to do this? Why I do that? It just gets to that particular point of where then, okay, what's the point? Like, let me know. What do you want? Go find what you
Mm-hmm.
want. Find that spot. Stop going to the club thinking you're going to find your next husband, your next wife, your next partner in the club, knowing that that's a low vibrational place thinking that it's going to be the greatest thing for you. Don't go on Tinder thinking you going to have a multi-million-dollar husband or wife from that. Be realistic. Stop being, in a sense, delusional with this stuff. There's a such thing not only of psychology of place, but we talk about common sense, and I don't know how common it really is anymore at this point, because it feels like some people are still going to a bakery wanting McDonald's. A bakery is not McDonald's. You are never going to get McDonald's, which is basically talking about insanity. You think doing the same thing, expecting a different result, is going to happen. Apples are apples. Apples are not pears. Don't go to the Apple store thinking you're going to get a pear. Don't go to the pie store thinking you're going to get a double cheeseburger. That's not going to happen. And once you put yourself in the space of what you want, where you want, and how you want things to happen, it's going to happen. It's going to be a higher likelihood that it's going to happen for you. So it's really, you want to put yourself in those situations, because our culture right now highlights dysfunctional and toxic relationships, and it's exciting and it's a rush and it's a feel. If I get to the one person there, it's going to be boring. No, that's how you look at it. You're also looking for a validation and attention from outside of you, when the relationship is between you and that person or groups of people. You shouldn't be worrying about what's happening out there. Y'all need to get this together. But see, everybody can start coaching and teaching on what you're doing in your life when they ain't even doing that. They not. They could be upset, mad, angry, all of that stuff. But before we keep continuing
There's,
going on at
there's
this,
even a book about this called Updating by Lau Lowndes, where she even has a chapter on how to attract a rich person, right? Like where like
shouts out to West Coast
she's
Ninja
very like no judgment.
Senpai.
But hello, the reason why I ask is because for for a while there was a period in my life where I kept attracting women with either schizophrenia or epilepsy or even suicidal depression,
Yeah,
right? And I was like, why? Like, is it because I have my own disabilities, right? Like like sometimes I walk with a limp, I'm short,
yeah.
and my front tooth is
Woo!
broken, like I have a broken front tooth and all that. So when I looked at that, it ended up bringing up my own insecurities too.
And again, learning how to address and manage
Yeah,
those. But
yeah,
before we continue, because a lot of
yeah.
what we're saying too has also been pairing to this last question. So let me at least put it out there. So
Right.
the last question, or the last topic for tonight, is: can a society survive with a high singles population? And a lot of the stuff we've already been addressing has been keeping to why either people don't want to be in relationships, or they're in relationships that are purposeless, which majority of the time, not only is this as a human race is to be fruitful and multiply, as the Bible states, but at the same time to create a structure where we can function as citizens in this particular case in society. How do we go about that if we have our structure questioned every single time without at least having some type of foundation to stand on? Because from what I'm just watching and seeing, not a lot of countries outside of us, some of us are starting to now pick up on the negative effects of not only feminism but all these other isms, and it started to leak in on how they see family relationships, etc., politics, all of this stuff. Is that because of the purpose of a family is starting to become more so null and void, is more about me. I had to survive because of how the times continue to change. If you can't bring me my full 100% or do this, then there's no reason to be with you. Okay, that's all cool and well. But just like we were talking about marriage, we have to reevaluate then how is this system going to work? Because back way when, not only the housing market, but also just cities in general were built and planned for families, men, women, and all that stuff. Now, living single it's not only saying it's creating overpopulation, but then you see now we've also created a crisis when it comes to our money, GDP, and all of that stuff. We've added so many more folks within the scope of how we buy and consume things that now we're not going to be able to sustain this stuff, because if we decide to go back and be within a unit of a family, a lot of that revenue and stuff is going to go down for these businesses, because if I can get you to pay a subscription, and then since you was with your significant other or whoever you were with, and you guys had a package deal together, it's cheaper. Why don't I split both of y'all up so I can get full price for you and then also full price for her or them, and I make more money? As well as I see a lot of this happening within Japan, as well as China's already been doing their best to address a lot of these things, but also in Japan, there's a lot of places, not only the whole idea of what they call leftover women, but there's literally so many buildings being built where a lot of these homes and these apartments, complexes is just singles. People are just living there. And again, generations are also dying out as a result. We're not passing on family traditions. We're not passing on a lot of that knowledge from way back when, because we the last ones. If we don't decide to continue the generation going on, and we have a family where that's not even happening from, oh, I have a brother, I have a sister. Nobody in the family has that. That family name, that's it. Your history, that's it. And that, I mean, that's just at least what I'm seeing. At least I'm talking all like the negatives of like, can a society do that? For it can, but not for a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a lot of singles, there would actually be depopulation, right? Not overpopulation. Where and there are a lot of Western reports of the Japan's aging population because apparently there's a lot of singles there. Uh, there are there are reports about these young men in Japan that stay like locked in, uh, that don't go out. And conversely, we when we think of prostitution
Yeah.
in the West, we only think about women, but in Japan, apparently there are also boys, like boys and young men. Uh, I think they're young men, but they're just called boys over there,
Yeah.
who are hired by these so-called
Oh
host places. Right?
yeah.
But it's
Mm-hmm.
the women who hire them
Hire them. Yep.
to, and they pay like thousands, to even just to talk with them sometimes.
Have the boyfriend experience.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, yeah, I have the boyfriend experience, similar to the girlfriend experience. So it's like in Japan, it's in both ways, where it's like they have both kinds of prostitutes. Oh,
Mm. I thank you for bringing that up, Kim. I'm not saying it's not stopping people from having babies, and I hear you on that, but it's basically perpetuating a system or a framework of folks being together, because that's literally, for me, I can only speak for, or I know more because it's my experience for the Black community, and why we are functioning the way that we are functioning is because 70%, and it's rising,
maybe they're
70%.
just having a lot of friends with benefits, or
Yes.
FWs as they call it.
Yes. And shouts out to Kim. She
Yeah,
also said, I think it's Mujolo, I think is the name of that type of situationship in South Africa. Is, I think that's the term. She can quote me on that, or she can correct me. But going to the point is, within a Black community, 70% of the households, single mothers. And that's already from the function showing that Mujolo, yeah, but yeah. So,
so, and
so
that's one of the
it's,
reasons is because they keep, arresting and imprisoning black men, right?
yes,
They keep for every little thing, there it goes all the way back to Jim Crow laws and
yes,
the end of slavery and all that, because
yes,
and the 13th Amendment, where they started Like even like laws like trespassing, loitering were originally created to target black men because that's or black people in general because that's what they did. So they were like, oh, we're gonna create all these laws
Yeah.
so that there's an excuse to put them in jail, in prison, so that now we can continue with slavery, but in prison because that's the loophole, right?
Yeah.
You can still have a slave as long as they're in prison. And today we have a lot of private prisons, so it's not even governmental slavery anymore. It's literally same as the old
Yeah.
days. It's like private corporate slavery.
Exactly. And you already took those points. That's what I was going to say. There is already agenda beforehand to get rid of the families because I'm going to go back to some percentages. You can don't quote me on all of these percentages. You can look them up yourselves. But yeah, before not only the Jim Crow area, but into the 60s and 70s, black black men and women, black families, the marriage was 80%. Now coming forward to this, 1 out of 4 women, black women, will marry. This is in the U.S. So it's down to 25%. On top of the marriage or the divorce rate being 50%, if not climbing. And then even further into that marriage, those who do divorce, 80% of the time, women are the ones that initiate the divorce. I know we don't trust stats. Again, I could create a statistic, but a lot of this is just to
Well, I
have
don't
some type
trust
of
that
bearing.
either. Yeah,
Yeah,
but, yeah.
but a lot of it is to have some type of bearing. Again, a lot of us, we're literally still just figuring things out. Do all of these experts that they call themselves experts know every single thing within their field? No. There's always something new popping up and something happening. But just like how our body works and how we keep talking about it, we have to have some type of baseline. We have to have some type of equilibrium. So we got to start somewhere. I just can't be jumping out and making assumptions if I don't at least have somewhere to start. And it's not going to be fully true. That's why we have it's 80% or it's this type of percentage. And that's why you go in and you go back check this stuff. You can say, well, this doesn't apply to my situation. Okay, then you can be in that part of percentage where it doesn't apply. But it's, again, it gets hard to try to generalize things because it seems like we're not specifying. But it's, again, that's always going to be the pull and tug with this stuff, is that don't make things so general because you don't know specifically how I work and do this. True. Okay, if we get specific, then okay, how does that work for me? How does that work from Kundan? How does that work for, and we're going to be doing the whole human population at this point. And I'm going to tell you now, there's not going to be people who want to add their stats and statistics to this stuff. They're not going to care. They're not gonna be like, okay, whatever. I don't care about adding it. So then we're never gonna have a true representation of either a population or a stream of thought or anything. But we gotta have something. Because I just can't come and just be throwing this stuff out without at least being like, okay, they surveyed this certain amount of people. So in this small sample size, which could be applied to a larger size, this is what it can look like. So I get y'all, because at the same time, I'm not very trusting of all statistics and stuff. I'll just say all the things that they put in these articles. I tell y'all, there's a certain way that you have to have a keen eye of reading this stuff, because they'll put things in there and misinform on purpose just so people can go and do the he say, she say, they say narrative and don't check this. And even our fact checkers also try to fact check the opposite. Why do you think there's a such thing too as conflict of interest when you have companies, I'm gonna say it, Pfizer, Moderna, literally Procter and Gamble, McGraw, all these other places, they will hire people to do studies to show them in a good light. When conversely, studies come out and shows that that wasn't the case, but they can buy that so then it can be hidden. So a lot of this stuff, again, is just throwing things up in the air, seeing what fits and what sticks for what particular narrative you wanna go for. I try my best not to always be dragging like, oh, this is a negative when I'm talking about this narrative. I just look at it as a reality. My mom, she's not married. Never did with my dad. I got two aunties and uncles. They're both in marriages. One of them look like it's a great marriage. The other one, honestly, be truthful, I don't even know. Look a little bit miserable to me. So it's like I'm also not only pulling from my anecdotal, but then I look outside of when I see certain people moving around and doing that. I do my own displays and stuff, but I know my experience and my knowledge is not the only thing that's valid to think of everything else. So that's my spill about statistics. But yeah, I'm with y'all
right?
on that. But we gotta have something. We
But
gotta do
it's
something.
not just breaking up the nuclear family. I think it's more like in general, it's breaking up people just in general,
Oh, true.
so that they end up being alone and away from each other, so that they
Yes.
cannot survive. Especially in the United States, like a few decades ago, you can,
Peace,
um,
Dallas.
if you have a two-person household, you can survive, right? Today, even with two incomes, you cannot really survive.
Nope.
And so if a lot of people are single and living alone, that's gonna make sure they're struggling and they cannot really rise up against,
Yes.
the actual people holding the strings, right? So the reason why I bring up that is because the nuclear family is not the only way to be successful, right? Because for us Indian immigrants, right, what we do is,
Yes.
like, I know these three brothers from Burma who are Indian. When they moved to the United States with their mother and their two brothers, I mean two nephews, they they stayed together in one house, right? And then they pooled all of their income into one income, right? They pooled all
Yeah.
of their money, and then they ended up buying, a bigger house. And then when they all got married, and they all went to Burma to have, to find a wife, to literally have the kind of arranged marriage that I was talking about, right? And they brought their wives back over here. They still live together, but now they have even more income because the wives also are working now, right? So
Yeah.
now instead of three people working, now there's six people working with six incomes, right?
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was eventually they had so much money saved up. Most of them were able to quit their jobs and buy like two or three uh, 7-Eleven stores, and now that's how they make their money now.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of Indian immigrants are like that. And similarly, in Nepal and Bhutan, we have what's known as polyandry, right, which is one
Mm-hmm.
woman would have multiple husbands, right, living
Yes.
together. But again, that's that sense of community, right? Uh, Whereas the nuclear family is more like the smallest unit of that, right? It's
Yes.
not the only way. But what they're trying to do is break up all of these different types of families, right? Because they want all of us to be alone. Right?
Yes. And this is what I will say. That's where the cultural difference comes in. Because I did touch on it earlier when we were speaking about the different types of relationships. And that's the one that I see that is the main in the US. I know
Mm-hmm.
about the whole not know about. I know in different traditions, and I also refer back to stuff in a lot in Africa. There are communities and societies. There's points where some kids may get birthed by another, group of parent, or like the two people that they will consider parents, but literally that community, each one of the other elders that's there, they are seen as a mom and a dad, regardless if they didn't birth them or not. So that type of, again, family structure and that community structure, again, it works. For us, I seen it was the nuclear family. Remember, the American dream. That's what we're basing a lot of this off of. So wife, the husband, wife, two kids, the fence, and a dog. Is that the right narrative to be going off of? Definitely not, because that don't apply to everybody having the American dream. But that's what we speak when we talk about the nuclear family, is being able to raise up the children in that particular household, because that's how the US packaged it. And once you destroy, or you pick at the structure, think of it as Jenga. You already took a whole group of pieces out of Jenga, piled them on top. Say that the nuclear family is the one down towards the bottom, and you decide, and you can see that it's very unstable, but you're still like, nah, I'm going to get rid of it. You pull it, everything else crumbles, that falls apart, that's on top of it. but it's because of the fact that you started that off as the base and the foundation. You keep poking at the foundation and destroying the foundation. Eventually, all these other type of relationships that, again, or, family structures that do work too, because we said it with, the nuclear family is the one you need to go to, everything else is going to end up falling into shambles. And we're going to try to start picking all the pieces together. And that's why we create a type of family structure over here. Then there's a family structure over there. It's all scattered when we can all end up, again, co-mingling together. And that's what happens when that was the base and we're messing with it. Everything else gets diluted. Because there's friend groups. There's literally, again, like you were saying, I know that's what it's polygamy. There's the polyamory, like when you speak, all of those are all poured up on top of each other. But in the U.S., it's the nuclear family. Once you mess with the nuclear family, you done destroyed everything else. And not to
Yeah.
say, so yeah, I know I'm going back and
The
forth, but yes.
irony is, if you look at the history of that, the the nuclear family itself, and the more I do research, seems like a colonial invention because there was a lot more diversity in terms of, the types of family structures that were in indigenous culture pre-colonial. But then later on, they were like, oh, like they were saying how powerful, their own. So they firstly broke up, the indigenous family structures, like the examples that I
Yeah.
gave, right? They replaced it with the nuclear family because they wanted that whole gender binary thing, right?
Yes.
Uh, but then they were like, oh,
What's
but
up, Dallas?
look at all these successful people, that we don't like, that are having success, even with this highly limited version of what we had destroyed and replaced with, right? So
Yeah.
they decided to destroy even that, even like what little was left. Like that's what it seems like to me. Like
Again, it's the agenda. It's what is the purpose behind all this stuff. We always got to continue to ask the whys. There's always a reason for what's going on and why it's going on,
yeah,
even if you don't know the statistics behind it. But it's we we as people, as humans, however you want to describe yourself, we have that inclination to have the discernment. And the reason why is because we have that intuition. When you feel something is not going right, stick on that and figure out why. Why am I feeling weird? Oh, it's because I'm starting to see that they're allowing all of this stuff to happen to kids and nobody's wanted to do anything about it. That's very, very peculiar. Why am I not thinking about that? Or vice versa. If you're a Christian, whatever, in that type of affiliation, and somebody's coming across and being disrespectful for you about your religion, saying that this is wrong or you're not living this right way and stuff, it's like, again, you have to address some of those things. So, yes, pick and piece, divide and conquer. I was going to say divide and conquer a number of times is all chess moves. But what's going on? Chairman Dallas in the building. What's good, my G? What's the word?
what's up?
Yeah, I can hear you with the multiple phones changing and the multiple jackets and no jacket and shirt, all of that. Of course. But let me see. I'm gonna look in the comments and let's continue. I'm gonna continue right there. Say, yo, what's up? I smoke weed though. Uh-huh. Am I saying that correctly? Man, peace and love to you, Zod. I hope all is well with you, my G. Thank you for tuning in. It said, let's see. She said, yeah, she said some people need to rip off or out their foundation and start again. Yes, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But again, the intention is, what are we going to do once we get rid of that? And what's happening in Western society, I keep saying Western, especially specifically the US, what's happening is we're calling all of this stuff out. We're saying this is terrible. We're saying that's bad. This doesn't work. All right, let's be a bull in a China shop and let's destroy everything that's in there
Now,
without
that,
assessing one thing at a time. Oh, this wall actually is still working well. We can replace this later on when we do this. Okay, the counter is terrible. We're going to have to get rid of the counter because it's not helpful. It's counterproductive. Haha. To a lot of this stuff. The lighting, we can actually use this type of lighting because it's more eco-friendly. Whatever it may end up being, it's helpful to be able to, again, we talk about relationships, the same thing with systems and all structures. Please assess. Please do your vetting process before deciding that let's go for it. And then you're starting back at square one with no type of plan, with no idea of what to do. It's just, oh, I want this idealistic idea, realist and idealistic, of what could happen, but you didn't even make the steps to how you can make that happen. But yeah, right now, Dallas, we are talking about, can a society survive with a high singles population? Because we was already talking about the single life, talking about the differences, what's going on. To me, there's still a part of a gender war that's happening, and it's already been happening for a while, and it's been because it's already still being publicized in media. But
Well, well, in my opinion, life is what you make it.
okay,
You know, and when it comes to dealing with people, I definitely agree that you know you gotta know things about yourself, about the education, and about life. Most importantly, like you said, you need the steps and the found. Somebody said that in the comments. They were speaking on
yeah,
foundation, so they need to know the foundation of what they building on.
yeah,
So if you
mm,
don't got the foundation, you don't understand what you're striving toward. You just it's like my papa used to say, you run it's driving aimlessly,
mm,
with no direction,
yes.
no destination.
Now that's very true. That's very true. All right, see. Oh shoot, we got the award-winning author Kim coming in, so we're gonna see. But as she's coming in, I wanna address my brother right here. He said, "I don't think so, bro. I think everyone needs a partner for real. I think, hey Kim, peace and love. I think some people just
What's
can't
going
get
on?
one and justify it by saying they don't need it. I feel you, brother. We talked about it a bit earlier, but from that, that's why it's important to, again, I keep on saying the vetting process is important. Yes, there's some people that, again, you can say they can't live without somebody in a different, they need a partner, need somebody to be with them. But this is where you got to understand the whole idea of being alone and then being lonely. If you are secure within yourself and you saying that you want somebody, it's not necessarily that you need that person to function. That's where it becomes a whole different case. Yes, we work as a group, we work as a community to help each other build. But at the end of the day, is my mom brushing my teeth every day I get up? And she clothing me every day that I get up? Is she driving my car to help me get to where I'm going? No, there's a part where we have to work interdependently, not also independent, but we work off of each other. But then there's some folks, like right now myself, that again, that's not their necessary path. A lot of folks who get called into the religious profession, pastors specifically, they're not called to be part of the marriage life. I think my friend at the point in time he wanted to become a priest and knew that's not going to be his thing. He gives his life up for the church. The same thing with nuns. They give their life to the church. They're not going to be in that type of structured relationship. The relationship that they're with is with God. It's not with another physical being like that. Same thing with we got our folks who are in Buddhist temples and stuff like that, being a monk. That's their road and that's their life. That's how they set themselves up. So they're not necessarily, again, in those type of intimate relationships. They still function because guess what? There's a community and a society of people that's there together. Am I saying that you need to be alone forever and just go insane? No. Innately in us, it's the ability and the need to connect, but to live interdependently or also on our own and have human interactions here and there, it's gonna happen. You're gonna it's needed. Technically, do I want to be in a relationship? Honestly, right now, no, because I don't need it. But if I wanted to in the future, yeah, if I wanted to, I could. But because of how we society's built nowadays, too, I don't have to farm for my food. I don't necessarily have to go and dig up oil to put in my car. I didn't have to build my car. I didn't have to make my house. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. A lot of these things, all I did was go work and get the money to put into it. So if I really wanted to go all the way, 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 way back when really community and stuff was put all together for this stuff, like that's when we really need it. Now, that's why you have not only women and men stating that they don't need anybody or need any of this stuff is because we've been babied, especially in the U.S., to have so much stuff. We have so much choice. We can have so much stuff that we want to do, so that when we come across something that we don't want, we already feel entitled. Give them what they
I
need.
agree.
Give them what they need. They will willingly desire it. Pleasing all their needs grants nothing but entitlements. So we're very entitled in the West, and especially in the U.S. But Kim, I know you
I
got
agree.
something. Speak for us
Hey, what's
from
going
the motherland. Give us what you got.
what's going on, Miss Kim?
I, I won't even hold you. I completely agree with you because we grew up on totally different sides of the world. Even my
Yes.
kids will grow up completely differently to a lot of people on that side's kids. My kids are not spoiled for choice. The only thing they can choose is if they want a cup of tea or they want water. And it's funny because we were having this discussion not long ago on YouTube where a small thing of washing the dishes. My youngest is now 8. My eldest
Mm,
is now 10. So now they've taken on the responsibility of washing the dishes once a week. So
okay.
they alternate. Everyone, the eldest one will wash dishes this week.
Yes.
The other one will wash supper dishes next week. So that's what we always battling now on about and
Yes.
cleaning up their room. So somebody misinterpreted that for grooming them for marriage,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm like, no, I'm not grooming my kids necessarily for marriage.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to raise them in the sense of that they know how to wash a plate
Yes.
and they can be decent people and know how to clean up after themselves
Yes.
and not wait for somebody else to do it for them.
Yes.
So that's why I'm like, that's this thing of being spoiled for choice, because even that sense of in our communities, how I grew up in a farming community.
Mm,
It's still a farming community. There's vegetation still being grown in my mom's
yeah.
backyard. That is a way of life. That's how we grew up. If I have millies or corn and you have avocados,
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking a packet of avocados. Giving me a packet of avocados, I'm giving you a packet of some corn.
Yes.
You get what I mean? So that sense of community is where I come from. That's the
Mm-hmm.
foundation of what I was built on. But I was also grown up in a single parent household.
Yeah.
So I also got to see how things were. And I'm like, no, this is not how I want to function.
Mm-hmm.
Even when my mom did get back together and got remarried to my dad, I got to see the toxicity between the two. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this is not what I want. So when it came into my life and the routes that I had to start taking,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, no. This is not working for me.
Yeah.
The way my mom behaved in this situation is not going to work for me. Her temperament and
Much
how
love,
she
Oakland
handled that
artists.
situation,
Shield, peace, and
yo,
love.
M3. So like I had to start doing that. But that's when I mentioned like some of the foundations we need to rip right out. You gotta forget everything that you thought you knew.
Yes.
If you thought you knew anything, you need to forget it.
Yeah.
I know nothing.
Yes.
That's where we can start having a conversation by, okay, how can we start teaching our kids to stop having this entitlement attitude? Oh,
Exactly.
you must. I have to have the latest this.
Yes.
You have to give me that phone. I must have a monthly allowance. I don't even believe in a monthly allowance, hey?
Yeah.
I must work to give you money for free. You are crazy. Imagine. I must give you money for free. Even for washing the dishes. I know my husband tried it at some point. He tried to give my eldest daughter. He's like, okay, you wash the
Yes.
dishes. I'll give you X amount of money every
Gifted
month. I'm
hands.
like, you're crazy. I cook that food. I prefer that money. Give me that money.
Yeah.
Let me put that money in my pockets.
Yeah.
I need to go and do my hair. I need to do something with myself. Come on, I need that money. So there is a time and a space where we're allowing society to raise
Make
kids. We're allowing
it
society
great.
to dictate what we can do, what we can't do. Even the foundation set in the
Yes.
West is crazy.
Oh.
There's a lot of things that I've heard come out time and time again. And I'm like, okay, one thing you need to remember is when you do come and visit Africa, you need to remember that you know nothing. In order for
Yes.
you to learn something, I know nothing. Okay, I know nothing. Let's go. Now we can have a conversation. How do we build a society? How do we re-look at how we're building up our communities? How are we re-looking at how we build up infrastructure, our family dynamics,
Yes.
or even single people dynamics? Okay,
Yeah.
this is also seen as an uncle. This is not even a related person,
Yes.
but that's a mom because
Yes.
of the mother figure. That's a dad because he holds father figure qualities.
Yeah.
But how do we start it? We started in a small group.
Mm-hmm.
You can't start it with the masses.
Yes.
If you started with the masses, you're looking for trouble. You started with the 10 people. Take 10 people and that's your trial run. If it works for 10 people, then you try it with 20 people.
Yep.
20 people, it works and continues. But if it's going to continue with just, this is the problem, we need to solve the problem, and then everyone stands back, okay, so who's going to solve the problem?
Bystander
Everyone's
effect.
looking at each other now. Who's going to break ground here? Because it's like you ripped down the foundation and said, okay, not even the foundation. You've taken off the veil of illusion.
Yeah.
Because now you're like, oh, snap, I've been living in that illusion. I don't even know where I'm coming or going. But you haven't even started breaking through the foundation.
Yeah.
Haven't even started at all. So that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Spitting. That's all I'm saying. You are definitely spitting. But that's the importance of us talking about human connection and relationships throughout life. That's one of the most important things, is really building relationships. You're not gonna make it in this world without building relationships. Because guess what? You were made with two people or plus. You were born within a community. You built and you learned through observing, and also all learning all your morals, values, and stuff from those people. We can't let TV, we can't let propaganda, we can't let the government or whatever ruling body that's over us dictate how we're supposed to be living and doing things. We got to be able to address that for ourselves within our own communities, because we got to come down to the communication and the understanding, the understanding of how all this all works together. Because guess what? We living with each other. Is the president coming down to your hood, to your town, to your city to come and give you money straight forward to your house? No. Are they coming to your community meetings with your governor, with whoever your abiding city official is? No. They all over the place. So we have to become our own sense leaders and saviors, and not wait for somebody to come and give us something on a dish saying that, oh, eat this, and we don't question it. It's important. But Dallas, you got something? Because you're going back and forth, side to side with what you're doing. But yeah, no, you spitting, Kim. That's all I'm going to definitely tell you. And yeah,
Either
for if.
no conversation.
Of course,
Hey, hold
but he
on,
wants to be on the
hold on,
live. But he wants to
hold
be
on.
on the live.
Hey, hold on. Before y'all come for me, I've been waiting patiently. I've been waiting patiently to say something. I just, letting y'all get y'all piece in,
Go for it.
Now. I do agree with Miss Kim on the note of when she said the spoiledness of people on the West. You heard? And the reason why that is because like my pops and my family, I ain't get spoiled. Well, a little bit. Like when I was like up to 5 years old. Up to 5 years old. After like 7 years old, after that, I ain't get spoiled. I was disciplined. I come from a military family, so I was very disciplined. But I also grew up in, I guess you could say, the not best environment.
Uh-huh.
So when you add those two things together, you come out with me. But I I do see that in stores. Like when I used to work, right? When I used
Yeah.
to work, because I've only worked one job my whole life, and it was security. So whenever I would work at these stores, sometimes I would see, me, I'm like, kids gonna be kids. I'm a firm believer in that. Don't be too hard on them,
Yeah.
but also discipline them to keep them straight and narrow. Um, so with that being said, I remember an incident in the store one time where somebody's child did something to me. It was a boy,
Yeah.
and he did something, and I said something to him. And his father looked at me because of what I said, and me and his father had the understanding of he telling you something right. And this was a man of a different, what they say, a different race.
Yeah.
And he was, he looked at his son like that man ain't telling you nothing wrong, and we need more people like that in the world. Salute to that brother, man, because we need more people like that that understand. Like the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
You know, I've had people in my community, even mentors in life, how you just said, we came in with two, but then, just different mentors. It could be Miss Kim, it could be brother CJ, you feel me? And or Mr. Avis and anybody, man. Like we got mentors in life and it takes a village. Even when you think that you're done growing, you got another plateau to reach. You got another level to reach. You
Yeah,
always got another level. Even myself, that's how you continue to improve. And I was actually just telling one of my brothers, I was telling him, I said, man, I was telling him how, excuse me,
of course. It's all good. It's all good, my G. Go for it. But all right, as you're doing that, you take a quick break right there. Um, with all the points there being said, it still just points back to the importance of community. And in the West, that's that's not the narrative. It's the individual. And because it's the individual, you see why we have so many single people. Yes, like myself, I couldn't be adding to the problem. But there is my part of now I know I'm doing my contradiction is how I give back. And for me, that's to the community. For me, I work as a school counselor. I speak with the students. I learn what's their situations, provide them with the support that I can, be that other helping hand out there to be able to watch and, again, give another eye to I'm there to help and support you. What do you need? Because I can see, I personally don't want to perpetuate a cycle of, again, not only single parent household, but not providing a structure for children, or if I had kids, for my kids to be able to stand on. And not saying that I wouldn't be able to do it. I want to be able to do it in the most functional way as possible. And then to be able to show that and not only just talk the talk, but actually live it and walk the walk, it helps to influence the next folks and people around you. They see a successful relationship. They see that it works. They see that a community is building behind it, that people are able to give critiques and actually care. And the attention to care to that detail is where all of that comes back full circle and shows that, oh, we're doing this for a higher purpose to create, again, a better space for us all to live and not just, oh, I got my space. Stay away from my space. You're in this space. I don't like your space. So, what's the verdict? The verdict is, can a society survive with a high singles population? Through time,
hey,
look at societies beforehand. I know, no, no. I'm not gonna say it's not the end yet. Don't worry, it's not the end. I'm just answering the question.
my bad.
Societies can survive, but not for a very long time.
Now back,
If your society is not built for singles in mind, then it will not functionally stand for a very long time. If it was built for singles in mind, aka if it was a group, if it was a community where each person had a role, whether if they didn't have children or if they did have children, that they're still the mom, the dad, things and stuff like that, the community will continue. But eventually, because of how nature runs its course, somebody's got to be populated. And if that doesn't happen, unfortunately, that's not, then it's not. It won't
what
be
I,
able to survive.
what I was gonna say is in relation to that question, because
Johnny Bars,
I never answered that question about can a society survive with a high
George,
single
GP.
population. It's one of those. Oh, that's what me and my brother was talking about. It's one of we were talking about how people have pointless conversations.
Okay.
I told him, I said sometimes the answer is so simple. It's x plus y equals z.
Yeah.
X was x plus y equals z. And a lot of people will go x plus y plus b plus a plus c plus w.
Mm-hmm.
just to get the Z when you could have eliminated the rest of that and just kept it so simple. Of course, you need people to popularize without what they call it, consummation.
Yeah.
Without that, you can't have kids.
Yeah.
So of course you need people to do that, and then you need people to be raised in a good manner to be
Yeah.
productive in society, because you can still have babies that are or individuals beings that are not productive,
Yes.
and people die, things happen to folks, and
Mm-hmm.
that could also lead, like the massive deaths in overseas in China and just anywhere else overseas, you know, and I think Miss Kim spoke about that, about the privilege of the U.S. compared to where she's at. South Africa again? Is it South? Yeah, yeah. I remember. I remember. So, and it's rare that I remember, so that's a good thing. But um, compared to people over there and just different individuals in different countries where they're not so fortunate and not so privileged,
Yeah.
people have died. People have died risking their lives to even come into the U.S.
Yeah.
You know, and so that right there, that's fuel to my fire to even do what I do, and that should be fuel to anybody else's fire as well. To get up, if you're in the U.S. and you're sitting around complaining about certain things and how your life not right, your life don't have to be perfect for you to make a move. It's
Yep.
always a move to be made in life. There's been times where you can't go party. Or watch this, school lets out, you go to school, you get home, and you like, man, I don't have nothing to do. But you go find something to do.
Mm-hmm.
That same innovative thinking, you can use that to make a change in yourself, in somebody else around you, you know, and formulate those relationships that help you get further in life.
Yeah.
My personal opinion, sometimes when you just work on yourself and just do the work to yourself, you just you're gonna be able to, and also having that foundation while you're doing that work, and
Yeah.
don't be scared to, how I think Miss Kim said that earlier, don't be scared to break that foundation. Hey, you might have been building with cement last time. You might need titanium this time. You don't know what you might need this time. It's a different level. With different levels come different rules, come different ways to play.
Yeah.
You can't play this way like you used to play that way. For some folk, just do that and have that discipline within yourself.
Yeah.
Discipline is key. I don't care what nobody say. Even even me doing the things that I do, like playing basketball or working out, right? But specifically playing basketball, how I got to be an elite basketball player, how I got to be an elite basketball player was my discipline. It was my training. It was why everybody else during summer, it was people out there probably turning up, going to all the parties. And it's not to say I never went to no parties or had fun doing my own thing with my people that was cool with. But I definitely had limited of those and a lot more
Yeah.
practice, a lot more training. So when that first practice came back for season, and a lot of people were saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna need a month or I'm gonna need 2 months to condition myself," I just had 5, 6, 7 track meets. I'm out there working in the summer in the grass. So when practice come back, I'm flying through everybody. You were better than me 6 months ago, but fast forward 3 months, 6 months, we might be on the same level now, or I might be better. And that's
Yeah.
life, man. You give. I don't care what nobody tells you. If y'all don't take nothing from what I said, you always in competition with somebody in life, and that's how you get better. Don't think of it as a bad thing. Think of it as, man, that person's better than me. I need to get on that level or better because it's gonna push you to be better. You know that's one way to install that discipline. A lot of people don't have that discipline because they don't know how to find it, and they can't find it because they always doing this. They do more of this versus hmm, hmm. I like the way that that was done. You know, when you just analyze certain things, and even playing basketball, I like bringing it back to sports, even boxing. Um, the first time I knew that I was gifted in fighting was when I used to tell people I see things in slow motion. I didn't even know what that meant. But somebody broke it down to me. They just said that you're moving at such a fast pace
Yeah.
that your brain is just it's it's the way it's processing things. You're processing it at such a different rate than most people. So when people might see something go fast, I might have just seen that go, just super slow.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from just activating your mind. They always say your mind is the greatest weapon. So use your mind. I get it. People say your words have power and stuff like that, but it's really your mind. I had an OG teacher, shout out to this man. He told me back in high school, he used to tell me, he said, think it's not illegal yet.
Yeah.
He used to tell me that. He said, think it's not illegal yet. And I was like, I had to be about 14 years old.
Shouts out to the word, man. Peace and love to you. What's the word? Word, man. What's the word? But no, brother, not no. Thank you for sharing that. And really driving home the whole point is a lot of this has to be instilled very early on, and it has to be, again, consistent and improved upon. And people have to be willing to want to do this stuff. But how we've already set up the society now, that's not necessarily the case, because the incentive of doing the hard work and putting in that long effort and struggle to do stuff isn't what looks beautiful to people. They glamorize, oh, being able to do this real quick and do all the shortcuts versus being able to properly assess and take your time and build with the quality equipment that you look and search for, taking your time to do so, so that longevity is the case versus just temporarily.
We call it cutting corners. Like
Yes.
think of it like this. Most people, if you run around a block, right? Let's take a block. If you run around a block, what do? You have light poles, you have trash cans, you have bus stops. Some people got trees, depending on where you at in the world. You got trees, you got just different branches, different things, right? Along that route,
Yeah.
there's a kind of a long way, and then there's a short way. Now, any training that I've ever done for professionals, whether it be for the military, for sports, any type of sports, I don't care if it's wrestling, basketball, football, boxing, whatever it is, all of my trainers in life, I can't speak for everybody, but my trainers, they didn't let us, let's say there's a light pole, for example. See if y'all can see this.
Boy, if you don't.
We're going to draw an image up. But let's say this is the light pole, right?
Uh-huh.
And this is the corner. Now, when most people come around this corner, they'll cut this corner like this. They won't run around the light pole. Even though it'll be the same distance almost, most people would rather run like this to get ahead versus coming here and getting ahead. So using that philosophy and that concept, right? That's the mind frame of most people. They want the shortcut. And don't get me wrong, the shortcut is kind of easy because if you can skip a few steps, like my little brother and sister, I'm teaching them steps that I wasn't taught at their age. That's a good thing. But I'm also teaching them steps that go behind that so they can have that long term, not just get it and don't have any structure behind it.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of people do. And with that, you know, I think single people gonna be as single as they pride let them be.
Okay.
If you got excessive pride, you're gonna be as single as that go. Pride is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of them people. Pride is good. Sometimes you need that you need that dog. You feel me? But some people are so bullheaded. Even myself. There's times when my team has to tell me like, "Hey, yo, D, are you analyzing yourself?" And I gotta be real with myself. And then there's times when I might tell them certain things, and it's like we gotta be real with ourselves. We gotta analyze ourselves and not let our excessive pride get in the way in order for us to continue to grow and
Yeah.
continue to reach those new levels. A lot of
Understood.
people a lot of people are unwilling to do that. So when you're in that position and you're unwilling to do that, you have conversations with people who are unwilling to do that. And you will enjoy those conversations with those people. Me, that's why I use the X, Y, and Z. People that have X, Y, Z, A, B, C conversations, I don't have long conversations with them.
Yeah.
You'll probably get 30 seconds of my attention, a minute at most, and then I'm back on to whatever I'm on. Because you're A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, and I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so black and white once you understand it. And I hope that helps somebody out there in the world that don't understand that.
Boom. There it is. I'm gonna read this comment. I'm gonna also just build quickly off of yours, and then I want everybody to give their last final thoughts and wrap up for this. Cause yeah, we went. Y'all about to try to make a record with these shows, I guess, because it's the last season. We over here about to go for like 3 or so something hours. But literally, the comment we have here, Kundan, appreciate it, says, yeah, it
Wait.
reminds me of the
Before
three
you say that,
obstacles.
before
Hold
you say that,
on.
before you say that, hold
5
on, Miss
seconds.
Kim. Hey, you look cozy in your jacket. I don't know if it's cold over there or what, but you look
It's
cozy.
freezing.
This
It's
fool.
freezing.
This fool. It's the beginning of the day over there, just to let you know. It's the early
Oh,
day
what?
over there.
Oh, what time it is?
It's 7 a.m. now. Yep,
It's
on the head. Seven just hit 7 a.m. right now.
7 a.m.
It's
Oh my
cold.
Yeah.
Oh man. Whew.
With that being said, now you know why she cozy or the way what she got on, just because. Yeah, it reminds me of the three obstacles to mastery personified by three archetypes: dabbler, hacker, and obsessive. He is speaking of the hacker who prefers shortcuts. Yes, but that's again, I'm gonna bring it back to a whole sense, and like I said, I'm gonna do my points and we're gonna go. So it's great that that's what you're doing, Dallas, that you're able to show those shortcuts is because of the fact that you went through the process. That's what generations are for. We're supposed to be able to pass down to the next generation on how to make the process even more effective and better and efficient. And if we don't give them the blueprint, they're going to be running and doing the same thing that we did. We could save them 10 years, 5 years, or 15 years of having to figure out what we already figured out, and they could just continue the process from there. So it's not necessarily always about is cutting the corners. Is I have the lived experience. This is what already happened. This doesn't work. Try this, and I'm gonna be there with you all the way there. Unfortunately, in the
Yo,
U.S. is hold
yo.
and
I just
unfortunately
no,
in the
cause
U.S.
no.
of
I just
course,
told
of
somebody that,
course.
Jack. I just told somebody that. I
Oh
did it and said, yo, I was having a conversation with the team. I said, yo, I already went through this process. The point of having me is so you don't have to repeat the same process. So if you go down this road, you can go down this road, but it's how you just said. I said, I'm not going down that road with you. I'll
yes,
go down this road if you go down this road. But it's what you just said. That's why I'm like, yo, I'm so stoked. But go
of course, and
ahead.
then you're gonna have to jump in and do all of that with your goofiness. All right, so other thing I want to add, and then everybody get their final thoughts. This is where, for me, I have a structure when it comes to learning and thinking and sharing with others. And I call it the 4 levels of understanding. For me, it starts off with the first part, which is the understanding. It's your basis. It's where you're starting. It's like, okay, this is my viewpoint of where I'm going to be beginning. So I have some at least basic knowledge of things. Then you get into the second level, which is the understanding, which has to do with you. All right, now how I'm gonna understand myself in this particular situation and environment with the knowledge that I already have. And then the third step after that is the overstanding. Okay, I know how this has an impact on me. Now I'm living in this environment with other people. Okay, how does it impact others that are around me of what I'm learning, doing, saying, etc.? Then it comes to the last part, which is the outer standing, which is, okay, I know this has an impact from me because of this, this, and that, which then other impacts the community like this. But then now how that small portion of the community actually has an impact on the world as a global, as a whole. So going from those levels for me, it helps me to get back to the point of how interconnected a lot of things are and how my impact has an impact on the community and how the community impact also has an impact on the world as a whole. And we can talk about it through a lot of examples of how literally Kim's over there in South Africa and how she's seeing that from all the way over here in the US. And it's all out there. The proof is there in the pudding. But ultimately being able to go through those levels and understand how that applies to community and connection as people, that's how we're going to figure out whether if we're going to continue to survive. Are we going to help each other out, or are we going to just decide, I don't like you, you don't like me, let's cross this line, we're not staying anywhere near each other? Well, I'm telling you, and this is another wise saying that they said. It says, and I got this actually from Shouts Out to A.D.V.I.S.S. It said the elder said, once you stop learning, that's when you die. Same thing with if you decide not to continue to grow and just decide to stay in one place, you become stagnant. There's no growth. You're not challenging yourself. Same thing with the community. If the community just stays in one place, we don't want to learn, want to keep doing the same thing over and over. There's no growth. So nothing is going to happen there. We got to cut those weeds. We got to trim them edges. We got to add in the water, put some mulch, do something different so that literally there's some growth happening. If nothing happens, there's a such thing why it's called change. Because things have to change. The seasons do not stay the same forever. It is not summer all the time. But at the end of the day, again, being single, population, is still a group effort. But of course, take your time to learn the difference between being alone and loneliness. And if you want to, you can, but watch the red flags. With that being said, let's go ahead and let's wrap up. I'm going to start with Kim because I know you probably got a lot going on and you about to get out so then you can get much more warmer than that jacket that you got with you. But any last thoughts on the show, comments, etc.?
Yeah, no, I'm freezing. I'm scared to even check what the temperature is. It's the weather's got hectic. You know when you look at the weather and you're like, snap, no wonder it's this cold, and then all of a sudden it gets more cold. So I'm scared to look at what the temperature is because it's been crazy out here. I don't know if you saw my statuses the other day. We had snow, and it was my first time experiencing snow, so I was like a small kid outside. So I don't. I'm telling you, it was hectic. So no, man. But with the whole single society, maybe for other parts of the world it would work. For Africa, I can't speak of the whole of Africa, but then for South Africa, because of Mjolo, there'd be a lot of kids homemade. Hey, there'd be a lot of kids who'd be walking around all over the show. If they're going to bring a single society out here or a whole community for singles, they must also put abstinence. Abstinence needs to be part of it needs to be part of the T's and C's there.
Yes.
That's not gonna work. Yeah. Already we have that problem. We also have married people that are having like 10, 15 kids outside of their relationship. So that wouldn't work. In this side of the world, but on that side of the world, maybe it could work. You know, maybe we never know. But overall, it was a good insight because of how you look at it, and when you look at the factors of how it could work, how it wouldn't work, and also coming from that side of we were all once single. We were all once living our lives and our best, so-called best lives of being single, learning responsibility, taking on that thing of like, okay, is it cheaper for me to rent a space or find a bigger space where there's multiple rooms and then it's me and multiple single people renting the rooms in that house? So, you know, those are the type of things I was living in. Those were the type of situations I got to live in before marriage. I got to rent a room out of somebody's house. I got to understand what it's like if I don't pay my room, the rent for my room, then the lights are gonna get cut off or the water's gonna get cut off. And all that other people could go and see their family members, and I was there where there was no family members, so I'm stuck with no lights.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
So those different factors are and experiences that we've had to go through, we've lived, we've seen, okay, this only works if we do come together. If we don't come together, it's not gonna pan out, it's not gonna play out. But in a real society, 9 times out of 10, maybe the 4 of us could make a community like that work.
Yeah.
If we take 5 single people and we say, okay, Ad, you one, and we take somebody else and somebody else and somebody else, and we say, okay, there's the 5 of you, and we're gonna test trial this out.
Yeah.
That could work because it's us. But then again, we can't control what they're gonna do within the community. 9 times out of 10, out of those 5 people, the 2 of them, someone's gonna wind up pregnant somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Because we know not everyone can control themselves as well when it comes to discipline.
Yes.
So also when it comes down to discipline, not just even in a single society, in a normal everyday society, discipline is key to the success of everything in our lives. If we don't exercise a level of discipline when it comes to business, when it comes to even marriage, because even in my marriage, I have to exercise discipline. I have to hold my tongue sometimes when I see my husband doing something crazy, and I'm like, and Kim, shut up, keep quiet. And I tell myself that loud, and I'm like, just keep quiet. And he's like, are you okay? No, nothing. And I keep my mouth closed. Because I want him to look at what he's doing and be like, okay, no wonder. Because I know I talk a lot in the house, so he knows. Like he always complains, like, you correcting everything. I'm not a kid, and I'm like, okay, cool. Let me learn to exercise the shut up method. So that's what I do. So at some point, even when we can see it's not going to work for our society, everything that we're trying to teach or thinking of implementing when it comes to that foundation that we have right now, we need to also go back and see, okay, for an adult, it's going to be hard to teach an adult that's already set in their ways.
Yes.
The kids have a better chance.
Yes.
The kids have a way better chance at doing better than we ever will or ever have.
Yes.
So that will be my closing remarks. If we want to impact, as you mentioned, the fact that you give back to your community, and that is the most important thing, is people need to understand that giving back to kids verbally and emotionally and physically is the most important thing, because you might be giving them that hug they've never ever received in their own home.
Yeah.
You might be telling them I'm proud of you, and they never ever heard that coming out of their parents' mouths.
Yeah.
So in order to impact and change a community, they just need one person to come and show an act of kindness, to show them some love, and be like, oh, that's my uncle. But I don't know him. Which side is he from? Your mother's side? Your father's side? No, he's just my uncle that we get to see every week. So that is the sense of community I always grew up in. That's why I mentioned I have a couple of moms. I have a couple of dads. Not because they biologically or by DNA we are connected. It's just because of the impact and the influence they've shown me over the years.
Yeah.
And that is a very important key to hold. So that would be a challenge, I think, for all of us in the space, and even people that come back to listen, is to at least dedicate maybe 2 hours, even if it's 2 hours a month, to something in your community. Something that impacts the next generation, or something that needs you to interact even with the nieces and nephews within your family.
Yes.
So you can get to give them a little bit of words of knowledge, or give them a little bit of guidance that they'll never ever get from anywhere else. But in 10 years, they'll remember you. So I'm going to be quiet with that.
Hey, you got the gym at the end. I just want to say that. Hey, and let me say something about what you said about you and the hubby. Hey, it's funny, cause my shawty, she would do that same thing. Like, I would be building something, she'd be telling me, like, she'd be like her name for me, but she'd tell me, like, but she'll only say it a couple times because she know I ain't even paying attention. I'm gonna do it anyway. But then she'll sit there long enough, and I'll look at her. I'll be like, I see why she did it like that. I see what she was talking about. But it makes sense. But the gym you dropped at the end, for people who missed it, when you said that you might tell them something and they'll remember that 10 years later, that's why I never hold my tongue when it comes to people that I care about. Cause I'm like, if you don't, I don't give. Can I curse on here?
Bruh, you been go for it.
I ain't never cursed on here. I don't know, but yeah, I don't give
Psych,
a. I don't
psych.
give. You know, me personally, I don't give a fuck when it comes to feelings. When it comes to the people that I really truly care about, I'm gonna tell you what you need to hear, and you might hate me for it, you might love me for it, depending on the particular person. Because I know the people that I be talking to. But at the end of the day, I don't even care if you hate me for it in that moment. I understand that when this like my papa used to say, when you hear my voice, you'll understand.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear my voice, and I'll be man, every time I hear that man's voice, I'll be, yeah, that man told me.
All right. Is
And
that
he
part of
told
your
me.
wrap up?
Bless you. And
You
now my
go ahead. Go
I
for your
was
wrap
I
up.
was yeah, I was just piggybacking on what she said because in case anybody ever missed that, I
Yeah.
wanted to emphasize how important that is. Like some people, they just hear things, they be like, I don't want to learn from you because it's too you coming at me too harsh or you coming at me too soft, and that's that entitlement stuff that you spoke about. You feel me?
Yeah.
And I'm like some of the best coaches and people in life that I've ever known went hard on me when and it bring that pressure out of me though. One thing about it, the harder you go on me, I'm gonna bring that pressure out even 10 times harder than what it came to, and I'm gonna make it better. And another thing I want to piggyback on that you said was about them kids, inspire them kids. Even when I'm out there hooping, I'm doing anything, training, whatever. I'm inspiring those people. I want to, we dap up, we shake, we love. I want to make sure that they know, like, yo, you can make it big. You can do this. You're not better than me, but you can get there one day. Like you got it, cause that's how you. That's how it starts here. Like he said, I'm not better than him. So now they want to go get better. Okay, go ahead. It's like it's like what I think they call it like reverse psychology type of thing. But yeah, like you gotta push yourself to be better, and that was something in my life. Here goes my rap. That was something in my life where I learned with people that I was surrounding myself with. Certain people kept trying to tone me down in certain ways, and it's like I'm not toning myself down. The world, there's people in the world that need this, that need Mr. Chairman. I can't tone down for the people who don't understand because
Yeah.
it might be 5 million people out there that do understand, but I won't never know unless I continue to make these steps that I'm making now.
Yeah.
And just like anybody else that's listening, or even the people that's on here, or anybody, y'all don't never know who might need this.
Mm-hmm.
So don't ever tone yourself down. It's especially for my fellas. Don't turn yourself down. We got
There it is.
bring that up out of them because when you bring that one thing I could speak on this from experience. One thing about a boy is once you put that type of pressure on him, whatever happens after is what he developed from that situation. That's why they say pressure makes a man. I've had so much pressure since I was like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old
Mm-hmm.
that once I just learned how to deal with it. And shout out to the people and like the mentors and like just life in general. God, first and foremost. But shout out to these things and myself for helping like just understanding. I said, wow, I'm really built for this. Even now, it's things that I go through and that I'm handling, that I'm building, and I'm like, I'm really built for this. It's been times when I hoop, we be down 15. The other team thinking they won. We done came back and won the game. And because they got two lacks. In my head, I'm just thinking, the next play, the next play, the next play, the next play. And because I know if we win every next play, we're gonna win the game. That's life. Win the next play, win the next day, win the next hour, win the next minute, win the next second. You can have it mapped out as far as you can. Shout out to the team for this one. You can have it. You can have it planned as far as it goes, but just focus on the next play. Focus on that next move, and that's something that even in myself I didn't know that I had until I started to understand life. Like I was already moving like that. So anybody that needs to hear that, go in, day out. You take a loss at 7 a.m., go to sleep. Shit. I'm being honest. I used to work, man. Some days that I used to go to work, hey, it was not the best day before. It wasn't the best morning, but I still had to go to work. And anybody doing that, man, let that job had got stressful. I go to my car and go to sleep
In short,
because life is not that. Whatever the pressures of society is putting on you ain't that important, man. Hey, God told me to get my rest. Man, I need to rest. But I'm not dumb at the same time. I always make sure, let me make sure that I analyze, I assess my risk. Okay, if I go to my car, I potentially could get fired. If you get fired, is you still gonna have that next check gonna hold you to do what you need to do? So you also have to assess your risk. I'm not telling you just go get fired and go sit in your car and do all that. Nah, I'm telling you, assess your risk. That's anything in life. Assess what you're doing and then make your decision.
there it is. All right. I know you can keep going for a spill, Mister Over
All
here,
right.
Preacher Dallas. All right. I want to make sure
Cheers,
because
hey,
I
cheers,
want to
hey,
pay
cheers to
attention to
Dallas,
everybody's
man.
time. I
Nah,
want to definitely make sure that I'm appreciative of everybody's time. So Kundan, go ahead, give us your final thought and wrap up, so
hey,
then I can wrap it
Yeah,
up and get up out of here.
I'm gonna
the
let you guys. I'm
single
gonna let you
life,
guys
man.
go. Wait, before he goes ahead and take off, man. Shout out to the boy Conan, man. But y'all, I'm gonna let y'all ride. Miss Kim, it was a pleasure seeing your face again. Always, CJ, call me if you need anything, brother. And I gotta get some studying, y'all. So peace and love, and y'all have a good one.
Peace. All right,
All
bring it
right.
home.
Yeah,
The philosopher, aka the fountain of just knowledge and wisdom. Kundan, please
yeah.
give you a wrap
So
up.
related to the question, right? Can a society survive with a high singles population and the single life? I also wanted to drop some historical facts,
Yes.
especially related to what we said earlier about the agenda to keep breaking up different types of families and to keep us single, right?
Yes.
Because there's also been well documented cases of forced sterilization or even tricked into sterilization, right? Whether it's
Yes.
the 40 years of the Tuskegee experiment where
Experiment.
they were injecting black men with syphilis, right? And then what happened in Guatemala, forced sterilization of Guatemala women, and in Puerto Rico, like the birth control was literally created through the forced sterilization of Puerto Rican women, right? Uh, and even one of the founders of Planned Parenthood was involved with that as well, right?
Yes.
So, and then in
Margaret
India,
Sanger.
right? In India, during the time of Indira Gandhi, especially when she took emergency powers, when she literally basically became a temporary dictator for like almost 2 years,
Mm,
Western powers were, at the time, India was also going through a famine, and famine in some parts, right? Some parts of India were going through famine, and Western aid organizations and Western forces were literally telling India, demanding that they sterilize their women and blackmailing them and telling them, we won't give you the food aid if you don't sterilize the women. That's how like cruel and bad they were, right? And but that's predictable and expected because what I learned when I took, Zana Joshi's The 8-Week Course, 1,000 Years of Hindu Colonial Trauma, is that
Yes.
So right now, India has like a billion, I think almost 2 billion people, right?
Mm.
And they're like Western. To me, this whole idea of overpopulation now feels like Western propaganda because they literally see us as roaches to be killed and exterminated.
Yeah.
So they not only want to kill us, they want to make sure we don't give birth to more, or in their terms, breed more, right? That's the way they think.
Yeah.
So in India, the British killed over a billion Indians during their 200 years. That's with the B. I was
Mm.
shocked when I learned that. And that does not even include those who died from the British bullets. The 1 billion
Yes.
number is just from their policies, like the various famines that they engineered, like the 3
Mm-hmm.
million who died from the Bengal famine, and there were so many other famines that are not as documented as well,
Yeah.
right? That's like way, like so many more times than the Holocaust, right?
Yes.
Uh, people are more aware of the Holocaust because they were, at the end of the day, white people. They were Jews, but they were white Jews mostly, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like a lot more people died through what Belgium did in Africa as well, right? Um, so, the genocide that King Leopold committed was so much more than the 6 million as well. But anyways, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because all of this is coming together, right? The forced sterilization, the breaking up of families. That's why, at least in India, I can only speak for India mostly, where their propaganda against arranged marriages, propaganda against our joint families, even though that's how we're able to actually, buy houses and 7-Eleven stores and do that when we live together and pool our income together, when 3 or more families, right, do
Yeah.
that. It's working like really well for us, as well as the arranged marriages, like you said. So because that helps with the vetting process, right?
Yes.
Where because you get the wisdom of the elders, the families know each other, we've known each other for decades, right? So we know like these are people with good character and aligned values, right? Now,
Yes.
do like elders, do people sometimes make mistakes and people end up with the wrong person? Yeah,
Yes.
sometimes that happens, right? But for the most part, like it's working really well. So my to wrap up, what I want to say is like really like with every episode, right? But even especially with this, like always educate yourself on the true historical facts, right? And as well as the current events, and try to see beyond the propaganda and the straight up lies, right?
Yeah.
Because even when it comes to the teaching of history, like the straight up lies being told about both the history of this country as well as other countries and cultures as well. So you got to learn to see through all of that, and that's how like you not only survive, you thrive as well. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Again, beautifully said as usual. And two things that you made me think of when you said that stuff, and I shook my head earlier, is because I always have songs playing in the background that I made. And you speaking about all these other different type of tragedies and stuff happening. I have a bar that says committed to serving out many casualties more than the Chinese famine because I got a feast. So I just had to put that in there, which was hilarious. While you were speaking about something like that, that's what's playing in the background. So just a synchronicity with random stuff like that. And then the last point of yours being with the lies. The word belief for me, I'm not a fan of the word belief, is because you can lie about your beliefs, and in the word lies in belief. So
Mm-hmm.
you gotta be careful where
You
that
lie.
falls. Yes, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm not saying don't use the word, but again, logically, this stuff starts to make sense with the words we use. But again, appreciate you, Kundan. Appreciate you, Kim, so much. Everyone that came through, Dallas, my brother Zod, knew who was new to this, Camden, everyone who participated. Thank you so much for being here. This has been definitely a long one and information filled one. So I appreciate everyone's time. It's so precious. So I just want to make sure I give my flowers because y'all are appreciated. Y'all don't have to be here, but you are here. We're building in ways and shapes and forms, and I appreciate you highly for that. Now, when it comes to wrap up, let's get this show up out of here. When it comes to current events, main things, being educated on what's going on, learn to read between the lines, as well as proper preparation prevents poor performance. I'm going to keep saying it so that you can be properly prepared, not only for you, but for yourself. And the important thing is the community in whole. So always make sure that you are staying up to what's currently happening. Doesn't have to be here where you are, but globally. Second, when it comes to the single life, at the end of the day, you can do what you want to do, but what's the result that you want from it? Are you growing? Are you just allowing yourself to just go through this carousel and not get anything from it, but more trauma, more hurt, more baggage? What are you going to be doing within your particular relationship with yourself? You going to love on yourself? You going to hate yourself? You going to hurt yourself? What are you going to do? So that when you decide you want to share this with somebody else, you come with intention and purpose to why with the vetting process. Lastly, can a society survive with a high singles population? Yes, but for not a very long time. Can they do it with monks? Because I saw that, Kundan. No, because there's people still making babies, and there's always going to be orphans. No disrespect. So it can still be replenished, but for how long? And with that is we need to come back to a consensus of being together. And I'm speaking a lot, especially in the U.S. We are divided so much. It is definitely, I'm surprised we still have united in our name, because it don't seem that united over here at all. Each state seems to have their own way of how they function. We don't seem to have a lot of consensus on a lot of things. Red state, blue state, independent, this, that. We got so much thoughts into this pot that honestly, if we were to have from different worlds, if we had a cuisine or a food that we had to create, I'm sorry, the US, ours would be trash. We throwing everything in that pot, and we're not even checking the ingredients. So ultimately, it really does come down
Always
to
the other way
community.
is too bland,
Yeah,
There's
that's
a joke
why.
about how European colonizers colonized the whole world for spices, but their food is still bland.
Either way, again, it's going to come out trash, terrible, because of the fact that it has no flavor, or it just is a concoction of a
Yeah.
Frankenstein monster of stuff,
Hmm.
which the English language is. But other than that being said, again, community is key. Being singles, please have an intention of what you're going to do with that. Have a purpose. Give back to the community, like Kim said, even if it's 2 hours. I think that's a great thing. We always talk about, what we can do or how things can be done, but we're not giving the steps. Little small things here and there to really show that you do care. Because ultimately, we live in here with each other. Can we get along? Let's do that. At least something. But other than that, y'all, this has been another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays. Appreciate y'all. So much love. Kundan again, Kim. Thank y'all so much. We'll catch y'all the following Wednesday for another episode. It's going to be episode 10. We getting close, y'all. Once December hits, this is it. So get in here, because some of y'all who's already in here, I got a little something special for y'all towards the end of the season. But other than that, y'all, I've been your brother A.D.V.I.S., Kundan, and Kim. We'll catch y'all the following Wednesday. Peace and one love. We're out.
Peace.